This is a manga with two male leads that countless single girls find endlessly entertaining. One is the cold and reserved cult leader husband. The other is the flirtatious royal guard Xiao Shou. When these two strong characters unite, who will gain the upper hand? 10 years ago, Li Shun, a court official, infiltrated the demonic cult to gather intelligence. Unexpectedly, he had an indescribable love affair with the cult leader Lang Xiaoqin. But ultimately, Li Shun, unable to escape his court identity, chose to kill the old cult leader, who would have been his future father-in-law. Now in peaceful times, the court wants to reconcile with the cult and sends Li Shun as a mediator. Thus begins his endless pursuit. He firmly believes that with enough persistence, Xiaoqing will eventually be his. However, when Li Shun and his followers arrived at the cult's entrance, they were immediately turned away. Our leader said anyone with the surname Li is not to be received. Hearing this, Li Shun and his followers were stunned. What did it mean? Did they have a grudge against the Li family? A young follower with yellow hair tremblingly said, "Maybe we should leave. After all, our court killed the current leader's father. And it's said that the current leader Lang Xiaoqing is cold-blooded and cruel, a murderous demon who enjoys torturing people." Li Shun smiled contemptuously, thinking it couldn't be that extreme. How could I not understand my own wife? He then waved to reassure his followers. Perhaps Leader Lang is just feeling a bit awkward. The followers behind him were completely confused. What did he mean by awkward to describe the cult leader? Li Shun, lost in memories, had gentle eyes full of tenderness. He used to be such a rigid and serious person, so rigid that he would close his eyes every time they kissed, and he would make me close mine too. Stop, stop, stop. How can such outrageous things be heard without a like? Speaking to these inexperienced followers, Li Shun waved again. Anyway, be smart from now on. You need to help your master win back his wife. What wife? While Li Shun was feeling smug, he didn't know danger was slowly approaching. A man in black robes sat in a sedan chair and coldly said, "The court is quite bold to send you to see me." Li Shun turned to look. It was his beloved husband. He couldn't help but softly call out, "Xiaoqi." Seeing this yearning expression, it was clear there were still lingering feelings. The cult leader had silver hair and striking purple eyes, making him particularly handsome. Li Shun immediately stood up and bowed, again explaining his purpose for coming. But before he could finish, his husband coldly commanded, "Guards, kill them." Is the plot this intense right from the start? This man, to maintain his brother's presence, even brought up details about who closed their eyes first when kissing their ex. Little did he know that his former lover Lang Xiaoqing was slowly approaching. While Li Shun was still smugly lost in memories, Lang Xiaoqing ordered his subordinates, "Guards, kill them." Immediately, his guards drew their swords and moved towards Li Shun. A green-haired man next to Li Shun stepped forward. But in the next second, Li Shun made a leap. He flew directly to Lang Xiaoqing's sedan chair. Then kneeling on one knee, he said, "If I've made my husband angry, I must make it up to him." "Xiaoqing, I was wrong," he said while reaching for his husband's hand. "Your past kindness to me, I remember it all. My betrayal was unforgivable. I can only beg for your forgiveness through atonement." Li Shun's inner monologue. As long as I show enough sincerity, my husband will forgive me. But Lang Xiaoqing slapped his hand away. Atonement? I couldn't care less about that. This is bad. The cold-faced husband isn't buying it. What to do now? Keep persisting, of course. Then what does the cult leader want? Li Shun had barely finished speaking. Lang Xiaoqing raised his hand to grip Li Shun's neck and said in an ice-cold tone, "There's only one thing I want, your death." Li Shun looked up at the man before him. His temper hadn't changed at all. But so what? He still had to continue coaxing him. Then he smiled and said, "All right." This move surprised Lang Xiaoqing. This person had always been crazy. What trick was he playing now? Li Shun leaned forward closer to Lang Xiaoqing, saying eagerly, "To die beneath the peony flowers, even as a ghost, I'd be romantic. But if you're going to do it yourself, please be gentle." What a rogue, actually stealing a kiss from his husband. This man just went straight for a kiss because he hadn't had any action in 3 years. Unexpectedly, his former beloved Lang Xiaoqing turned on him instantly. He immediately delivered a swift kick, then wiped his face where he'd been licked, saying with disgust, "How filthy. Are you a dog?" Li Shun, though kicked away, pretended to be casual while enduring the pain. "If you want me to be a dog, I can do that too. Then he barked twice. Woof woof. Goodness, simps these days are so competitive. At this rate, even an iceberg could be licked into a warm puppy. No, that's too much. Obviously, the ice-cold husband Lang Xiaoqin remained unmoved, and even wanted to curse at this shamelessness. Seeing his husband ignoring him, Li Shun cried loudly on the spot, while still self-reflecting. Cult leader, was my dog impression not cute enough? Then I can act like a cat too, listen meow. This pursuit of his husband really knew no bounds. Lang Xiaoqin, sitting in his sedan chair, wished he could dig a hole and hide. An observant guard tactfully asked, "Leader, shall we dispose of these flies?" Lang Xiaoqin waved his hand. Let them be. It seemed the cult leader still had lingering feelings for his spouse, but the tactless guard continued to add fuel to the fire. Leader, you surely don't still believe those court hypocrites? I heard you once loved a loyal court servant and even endured extreme torture, nearly dying, just to be with him forever. But that person was actually a court spy. Not only did he destroy our entire clan, he even tried to harm you. Have you forgotten all that? These words cut like knives into Lang Xiaoqin's heart. Forget? How could I forget? The pain I endured will be returned exactly as it was given. How scary. Don't bully Li Shun. Please catch those who don't like this to entertain you instead. The rejected Li Shun was now sulking. My sweetheart is ignoring me. The guard was shocked, completely stunned. The green-haired guard tried to comfort him. If the cult leader won't accept you, there's nothing we can do. Li Shun was instantly speechless. If you don't know how to help, don't try. You might as well say licking someone's face right away is lucky if it doesn't get you killed. But I can't control myself. Seeing my beloved whom I've missed for 3 whole years standing right in front of me, who could possibly resist? The green and yellow guards couldn't help but sigh inwardly. Is this person a pervert? Li Shun, who usually never played by the rules, suddenly changed his sad demeanor and showed an indescribable expression. Perhaps I am. In the past, Qinger and I did much more than this. Then he started scratching. This scene and that scene. Goodness, is this a kindergarten bus? Do you want to hear more details? The subordinates immediately refused. Enough, enough, go torment someone else with your love story. Then they quickly returned to their duties. Ah, it's a pity Qinger is so cold now. The green-haired guard added, not just cold. I think he hates you to the bone now. Boss, you'd better calm down, or he might kill you. Disheng laughed brightly. You think my 10 years as an undercover in the demon cult went smoothly? There were countless times when Lang Xiaoqing nearly killed me, but what we owe each other can never be settled in this lifetime. This man was trying to get close to his spouse, but unexpectedly got called a dog. It seems his spouse was truly angry. Then I might as well build a house right at the demon cult's entrance. This way I can comfort my spouse every day. This action left the demon cult guards completely speechless. This was absolutely ridiculous. They'd never seen anyone dare to build a house at the demon cult's entrance. Seeing this, Li Shun wasn't angry at all. Instead, he stepped forward saying, "Don't be angry, brave warrior. Your job isn't easy. Have some ginger soup to warm up." But the warrior looked disdainful. You'd better get down the mountain. Otherwise, when the cult leader returns, you'll regret it. Li Shun deliberately teased. Is the wolf cult leader very fierce? The warrior replied fearfully. I once saw how the cult leader dealt with traitors. The scene was so horrific I couldn't eat for 3 days. These words made Li Shun's followers tremble in fear. With the sound of bells swaying in the wind, Lang Xiaoqin appeared in a black robe. Upon closer look, his enchanting eyes were glaring fiercely at Li Shun. Seeing his spouse return, Li Shun immediately waved, "Men, form ranks." Then he adjusted his clothes. Today, he must show his manly side in front of his spouse. The followers behind him scattered flowers to support Li Shun. As a result, Li Shun smiled brightly at Lang Xiaoqing and said, "Hello, dear." The followers behind him were instantly speechless. Li Shun continued to approach his spouse, showing concern, and handed him the soup he had made. But Lang Xiaoqing didn't even look at it and knocked it away with one hand. Then he walked straight past him. When Li Shun came to his senses, he heard the word ghost echoing in his ears. But Li Shun, as if already used to this, smiled mischievously. He took out a backup soup from his chest, calling out, "Qinger, don't go." Then, humbly offered the soup to Lang Xiaoqing again. Lang Xiaoqing was speechless at this shameless behavior. You want me to drink it? Disheng's eyes instantly lit up. Yes, yes. His heart leaped with joy. Sweetheart is finally talking to me. Sweetheart is so cool. But Lang Xiaoqin coldly said, then kneel down. Di Sheng's pupils dilated instantly, but he quickly regained composure. All right, if that's what you like, then I will kneel. The followers behind him were all jaw-dropped. How could their powerful boss be so obedient to this demon cult leader? Li Shun obediently knelt before Lang Xiaoqin, holding up the backup soup. Lang Xiaoqin truly hadn't expected him to go this far for him, so he reached out and took the soup back. Then he unscrewed Di Sheng's eyes instantly lit up. Could it be that his spouse had forgiven him? Was he going to drink the soup? But the next second, Lang Xiaoqin poured the soup directly onto Li Shun's head. The soup flowed down Li Shun's hair in streams, and Lang Xiaoqin didn't look happy either at this moment. He then threw down the soup pot, turned and left. The followers rushed forward to comfort their boss. Li Shun gritted his teeth and said, "My men." The followers immediately stood at attention. But instead of giving orders, Li Shun suddenly called out joyfully, "Qinger finally looked at me properly." Then he happily chased after Lang Xiaoqin. "Look at me again. I have plenty of soup. You can pour it wherever you want." Lang Xiaoqin couldn't stand this guy. Why was he so persistent? He turned around, grabbed Li Shun's clothes and said, "You fool. Once I gave you my heart and soul, but you didn't want it. Now you come running to be humiliated. Do you understand?" Li Shun mumbled, "It hurts." Lang Xiaoqin actually slapped him and asked, "Hurts?" Li Shun quickly denied, "No, not as much as when you used to go crazy, young Master Xing." These words seemed to pierce Lang Xiaoqin's heart. He pushed Li Shun to the ground with one palm. "Someone bring him in and clean him up." This man was a masochist. When his spouse whipped him, he not only didn't dodge, but moved closer, smiling at his spouse saying, "Do whatever makes you happy." Was this foolishness or pure love? Just now, after Lang Xiaoqin poured a pot of hot soup on Li Shun's head, he was thrown into the punishment room like trash. Just as Li Shun was complaining about freezing to death, Lang Xiaoqin's voice came from behind. "Lordly is still the same as before." The reckless Li Shun turned around at these words. His spouse stood high above, playing with a long whip in his hand. Li Shun looked at the whip in his hand, immediately showing a lewd expression. Seeing his vulgar appearance, Lang Xiaoqin was instantly furious and sneered, "Come in with me. You should know what's going to happen next." Di Sheng naturally understood the pain he was about to endure, but he still showed an eager expression. This behavior left Lang Xiaoqin truly unable to handle it. "Since you're not afraid, take off your clothes and kneel down." As soon as the words fell, Li Shun hastily took off his upper clothes, then knelt before Lang Xiaoqin, followed by the whip landing on Li Shun's body. But the more Lang Xiaoqin whipped, the more excited Li Shun became. His mouth even let out sounds of enjoyment. Then he moved closer to Lang Xiaoqin, rubbing against his leg, and joked, "It seems the cult leader's madness hasn't been cured. You still need to hurt others to maintain your sanity." Lang Xiaoqin didn't back down from this provocation. Using the whip to lift Li Shun's chin, he said, "You're nothing but a convenient tool for me to use. When you're worn out, I'll discard you just like you threw me away back then." After speaking, he bit Li Shun's ear. Though the bite was painful, it could excite Li Shun for a whole day. Then, the whip fell on Li Shun's body again and again. After several torments, he was covered in sweat. Seeing Li Shun lying on the ground silently, Lang Xiaoqin mocked, "Can't take it anymore?" Li Shun immediately changed his expression and smiled. "How could that be? Cult leader is being very kind to me, using not even half the force as before." These words seemed to pierce Lang Xiaoqin's heart. He suddenly raised his leg and kicked Li Shun to the ground, then gritted his teeth and said, "Don't be so presumptuous. The obedient Lang Xiaoqin from before is dead, killed by your own hands." As emotions fluctuated, Lang Xiaoqin's eyes gradually changed from purple to red. Though being choked breathless, his mouth still called out Lang Xiaoqin's name, and the words "Qinger" seemed to trigger something in Lang Xiaoqin. In his mind, the scene of his first meeting with Li Shun flashed. He was only 12 years old then, but had white hair. Everyone thought he was a monster. No one dared to talk to him, because he would go mad and kill people after taking medicine. But Li 14 was different from others, daring to approach him step by step. Sure enough, after Li 14 served him medicine for the first time, he pounced on Li 14 like a demon. Although he tried hard to control his emotions, still, Li 14's body was inevitably covered in wounds. He could only cry helplessly and tell Li 14 to run quickly. But in Li 14's heart, he was just a gentle child who, even when going mad, didn't want to hurt anyone. So he stayed with him, holding him in his arms to comfort him. "Until you wake up, I will always be with you." Only then did Lang Xiaoqin slowly regain consciousness. While caring about Li 14's wounds, he apologized. With these memories, Lang Xiaoqin's consciousness seemed to return to the present, gradually releasing Li Shun, then stood up and said, "How disappointing," then once again threw him into the snow like trash. Li Shun felt like a huge fool, but he had no regrets, because Lang Xiaoqin's current state was entirely due to his actions 3 years ago. So no matter how difficult the path to win back his spouse was, he would persist, until he found the Qinger from before. Speaking thus, he hugged Lang Xiaoqin's leg again. Lang Xiaoqin showed no mercy, stepped down directly and said, "Don't think I won't kill you." Di Shang said cheekily, "If you wanted to kill me, you would have done it earlier. Otherwise, how would I still have the chance to kneel here?" Lang Xiaoqin was completely figured out, and with a resigned attitude said, "If you like kneeling, then keep kneeling. If you kneel until I soften my heart, I might even reward you with a kiss." What kind of major backfire scene was this? One moment, Di Shang was still immersed in the excitement of pasting couplets. The next moment, he was rewarded with a big bone from Lang Xiaoqin. This man's face changed faster than Zhan Huan's perceptiveness. All of this happened because Di Shang had hidden a hand warmer in his clothes. And just when the two were pasting couplets, it fell out. Lang Xiaoqin felt that Di Shang had once again fooled his feelings, so he took action directly. But Li Shun was defiant. "The cult leader only told me to kneel, not that I couldn't eat." Lang Xiaoqin turned away, leaving with the words, "Stubborn fool." Seeing Lang Xiaoqin angry, Li Shun immediately acted like an obedient puppy, grabbing Lang Xiaoqin's leg, then cheekily asked, "Big punch, was it to punish me for the couplet pasting earlier?" Lang Xiaoqin withdrew his grabbed leg, coldly said, "Once couplets are pasted, they can't be taken back. But I can do things I like, but you hate." After speaking, he stepped on Li Shun's hand. Li Shun endured the pain and pretended, "So hitting me is something the cult leader likes? Then the cult leader can exchange couplet pasting for bullying me." He then looked at Lang Xiaoqin with meaningful eyes. "Is the cult leader interested?" Lang Xiaoqin frowned, thinking how this person could be so shameless, then reached out to lift Li Shun's chin. "Heh, still want to paste couplets?" Li Shun, like a cat sticking out its tongue, eagerly expressed his enthusiasm. However, Lang Xiaoqin unconsciously increased the force of his hand. Gritting his teeth, he said, "The high-ranking lordly, now speaking so cheaply, have you no face left?" Though harsh, these words had no effect on Li Shun, because he noticed Lang Xiaoqin's state was not right. Seeing Li Shun's silence, Lang Xiaoqin's hand slowly dropped. Li Shun probed, "Cult leader, are you speaking to me in a clear state of mind?" Lang Xiaoqin, as if exposed, said with a twisted face, "I am perfectly clear-minded." Then Li Shun was thrown out of the demon cult like trash. Sitting in the snow, he scratched his head like a confused monk. "My wolf brother, why are you as moody as a woman?" The followers behind saw their boss return, and were all overjoyed. One exclaimed, "Indeed, bad luck lasts 1,000 years. This pervert will definitely live to 100. However, before finishing his praise, Li Shang collapsed, mumbling that he had underestimated the northern snow. Afterwards, Li Shang began to rest under his followers' care. But unfortunately, the earthen house they built was too cold. The yellow-haired follower suggested seeking help from the demon cult, which could also improve the relationship between their boss and the cult leader. But Li Shun shook his head. He had been enduring his guilt just to avoid falling in front of Lang Xiaoqin. How could he turn around and ask for his help? The yellow-haired follower was surprised. Has boss been sick all along? But why endure it? Li Shun fell into deep thought. I don't want to exploit his sympathy anymore. That would be too cunning. As he spoke, he passed out. But memories from 13 years ago flooded his mind when he first met Lang Xiaoqin. After several conversations, he learned Lang Xiaoqin's martial arts practice had the effect of driving people mad, so he had to rely on medicine to release it. Otherwise, if suppressed in his heart, he would become a murderous demon. And with his extraordinary vitality, Li Shun took on the task of delivering medicine. In reality, he was playing the role of a release tool. As Lang's evil-subduing skill grew stronger, the price he paid became greater, and the scars on his body grew deeper. But to complete his undercover mission, he endured it all silently. And every time Lang Xiaoqin regained consciousness, he would apologize with a helpless and innocent face. He would treat his wounds and give him many rare items as compensation. It was precisely this gentle and pitiful child that made Li Shun's originally dull mission become more hopeful. Meeting such a kind person who wouldn't like him. Over time, their relationship gradually became subtle, and Lang Xiaoqin became increasingly dependent on Li Shun. He silently vowed to always be good to Li Shun, but years later, he learned that the feelings he had poured his heart into were repaid with betrayal. If your ex behaved like this with other brothers behind your back, would you give them a big punch too? Just now, several martial arts sects prepared to attack the demon cult. Unexpectedly, as the leading youth drew his sword, Li Shun flicked his finger, deflecting it back to his own forehead. The followers watched proudly. See? That's our boss. But looking closer, Li Shun's next moves were quite unexpected, a whole set of flirting techniques that were smooth as flowing water. But just as his hand was about to make the next move, Lang Xiaoqin appeared. The mighty Di Xing instantly turned into a panicked little mouse, explaining it was all a misunderstanding. But Lang Xiaoqin dismissed it. Did I ask you anything? You're quite practiced at explaining. Di Xing pleaded. I just worried you'd misunderstand that I've transferred my affections elsewhere. Lang Xiaoqin ignored his explanation, pushed him away directly, leaving with one word, leave. At this moment, the youth tried to launch a sneak attack while they were talking. Unexpectedly, Lang Xiaoqin launched an airstrike. The youth spat blood from his nose. The followers behind were shocked. Could this be the legendary instant kill? The youth was still terrified from the previous palm strike, when Lang Xiaoqin's demonic claws appeared above his head again. At this critical moment, Di Sheng rushed in front of Lang Xiaoqin, grabbing his arm, begging him to show mercy. Lang Xiaoqin's face instantly darkened. You're protecting him? From his tone, it seemed the cult leader was already jealous. Di Sheng quickly explained that killing these young masters and ladies would bring disaster to the demon cult. Lang Xiaoqin sneered, You think I'm afraid? Then, as if enraged, his eyes began to fill with blood. As a demonic wind swept through, the youth spat blood again. Di Sheng noticed something was wrong with Lang Xiaoqin's state. He immediately ordered everyone behind him to retreat. The demon cult followers mocked. It's too late. The cult leader only regains consciousness after killing enough people. Then, Lang Xiaoqin manipulated the stones on the ground with both hands, forming a black shadow that drew upward, making everyone else tremble in fear. But Di Sheng remained completely calm. He pulled out a rope from his body, smiling and saying, Darling, leave the madness to me. The demon cult followers were shocked. Are you crazy? When the cult leader goes mad, he recognizes no one. Don't try to use ridiculous emotions to influence him. Li Shun was surprised. Since when did demon cult members become so caring? Then he smiled mischievously. Don't worry. I know this version of Qinger all too well. Soon after, Li Shun clapped his hands and said, Done. Looking down, Lang Xiaoqin was already thoroughly bound by Li Shun. The demon cult followers were instantly displeased. How dare you treat our cult leader like this? Li Shun advised, Don't panic, brothers. These small tricks won't restrain Lang Xiaoqin for long. As he spoke, he brought his hand to Lang Xiaoqin's face, and Lang Xiaoqin instantly calmed down. He kept licking the blood on Li Shun's hand. It turned out that besides killing, consuming enough blood could also suppress the 9 nether evil technique. The demon cult followers exclaimed that in these 3 years, they had never seen the cult leader drink anyone else's blood. Di Sheng said indulgently, Of course, my person only responds to my blood. It was through this method that he could stay by Lang Xiaoqin's side for over 10 years, and clearly now, he still remembered the taste of this blood. But such a docile and cute Qinger shouldn't be seen by others. The perceptive green-haired follower immediately dragged the demon cult followers away. But the followers struggled desperately, saying the blood feeding must be done within their 9 nether cult. Lang Xiaoqin exclaimed with delight, That's exactly what I want. Everything was falling into place effortlessly. The demon cult leader had a type of mania. When it struck, he recognized no one. But when meeting his ex, he would calm down instantly. Just now, when Lang Xiaoqin was about to go on a rampage after losing control, Li Shun subdued him with just a rope. Now Lang Xiaoqin was nestled obediently in Li Shun's arms, licking blood until he regained consciousness late at night. He was surprised to find Li Shan in his bed, but upon seeing his wounds, he instantly understood he must have gone mad again during the day. Looking at Li Shun, who was tortured and now feverish, he couldn't help but feel heartache. So he rummaged through his belongings for a bottle of medicine, then opened the stopper, and gently sprinkled it on Li Shan's wounds. But when leaving, he acted cold, saying he wasn't being nice to him. Don't be presumptuous. But the next moment, he ordered Chu Xian to secretly bring the medicine master. Such a contradictory man was truly irresistible. When Li Shan woke up the next day, it was already late morning. He found himself in Lang Xiaoqin's bed, covered with his blanket. Using his pillow, his heart instantly bloomed with joy. Being able to feel Qing'er's scent again was truly heaven sent. He excitedly rolled around in bed, but suddenly, there were voices from outside. A young man in pink and red clothes was speaking coquettishly to Wang Xiaoqing. Could this be a love rival? Lang Xiaoqing expressionlessly replied to Huai about his location. The red-haired follower explained with ill intent, "Sister is busy and can't come, so she sent him instead." In fact, they had intercepted the message midway and hadn't told his sister. Lang Xiaoqing pulled back his grabbed arm, coldly said, "Call Master Huai here." The red-haired follower looked hurt. "Brother, do you not like your nephew anymore? I'm so sad." Li Shan inside immediately rushed forward. "Cult leader Lang is already a married person. You should abandon those dangerous thoughts." The red-haired follower pointed at Li Shan. "Who is this old-fashioned man? How did he come out of brother's bedroom?" Di Sheng instantly became furious. Then Lang Xiaoqing also looked at him with disdain, then dropped a line, "If you're healed, don't stay here being an eyesore." Li Shan was so embarrassed he could dig through the floor. The red-haired follower beside burst into laughter, then snuggled against Lang Xiaoqing, mocking, "Did you hear that? Brother Qin says you're an eyesore." Just as the red-haired follower was feeling smug, Lang Xiaoqing spoke, "So are you," then pulled his arm back again. "Haha, this sudden face-slapping was brilliant." The red-haired follower instantly burst into tears, asking why Brother Qing wanted to drive him away. But the next second, he turned against Di Sheng, saying it must be because of this vixen, then started hitting and kicking Di Sheng. Li Shan completely ignored him. He turned to ask about Lang Xiaoqing's condition, whether it had been frequently occurring. Lang Xiaoqing responded with a swift kick. He really brought up the worst topics. It was because of his appearance that made his condition frequently occur recently. Li Shan muttered through the pain, "This is too much." It was the third time being kicked. If not for pursuing his wife, he would have dodged long ago. Wang Xiaoqing said fiercely, "Don't bother me. Get lost." Li Shan knew it would be unwise to ask more, so he got up to bid Wang Xiaoqing farewell. After Li Shan left, the red-haired follower clung to Lang Xiaoqing again, thinking Lang Xiaoqing's previous actions were just to make him jealous. It must be said, this kid had quite an imagination. Li Shan smiled bitterly at this. He probably hadn't seen a jealous Lang Xiaoqing before. The scene shifts to 13 years ago. He had just spoken a few words with a maid, and Lang Xiaoqing got angry, forbidding him from playing with maids in the future, saying he belonged only to him and must stay with him forever. Back then, Li Shan didn't understand what those words meant, only thinking Lang Xiaoqing was strange. He was composed with others, yet only bullied him. Only now did he understand that such jealousy was reserved only for those you love. But now there was a rift between him and Qing'er. He had realized everything too late. After Li Shan left, Lang Xiaoqing remained silent inside. The red-haired follower, when he wasn't paying attention, put something in his teacup. He wanted Lang Xiaoqing to burn with desire, lose control, and consummate their relationship. This way, he could secure his position as the cult leader's spouse. With an evil smile, he handed the tea to Lang Xiaoqing. The demon cult leader had a kind of madness. The more important someone was to him, the more he wanted to torture them mercilessly. One moment he whipped Li Shan, the next he threw him into the snow. All because this person betrayed him 3 years ago. To gain Lang Xiaoqing's forgiveness, Li Shan obediently knelt in the snow. As a result, several strong men from the demon cult saw Li Shan's delicate appearance. They had evil intentions. Damn it, were they blind? How dare they touch the cult leader's person? One of the rough men prepared to make a move. Li Shan immediately turned his head, stating he wasn't interested in anyone except the cult leader. He then continued waiting, facing the direction of the room. The rejected rough man, feeling humiliated in front of his brothers, became instantly enraged. Inside, a cult member asked the leader if they should help Li Shan. Lang Xiaoqing coldly said to leave it alone. But when the follower was about to close the window, Lang Xiaoqing's face turned black as coal. Then he directly ordered the follower to withdraw. The rough man saw Li Shan still motionless. He grabbed Li Shan's clothes, saying, "Wearing so little, isn't it to attract attention? Why act proud now? Don't be ungrateful." With that, 4 or 5 men attacked Li Shan together. Li Shun's eyes instantly turned sharp. If the tiger doesn't show its might, you think I'm a sick cat? Accompanied by several screams, the strong men instantly became corpses. Yet Li Shun remained kneeling in his original position. As the snow grew heavier, even Li Shun's strong internal energy would be depleted. He muttered that if Qinger didn't come soon, he would freeze to death. As time passed, his consciousness began to blur. In his mind, he saw Qinger's helpless face from the past. Instantly, his eyes became determined. All this was caused by him, so he must bear it all. Then he shook off the blood, cleared his throat, and said, "Cult leader needn't worry. I can stay in these conditions for 3 days." The cult followers inside who heard this thought he was crazy. 3 days would surely freeze him to death. Lang Xiaoqin ordered that if he couldn't last 3 days, just dispose of the corpse. The follower was confused. The cult leader's order seemed cruel, but why did his expression look like he wanted to rush out and help immediately? And so, Li Shun knelt in the heavy snow for 3 days. When they looked at him, he had transformed from a man into a snowman. Lang Xiaoqin ultimately couldn't let go in his heart. He slowly began removing the snow from Li Shun's body. Li Shun's face was flushed red with cold. He checked his breathing, still alive, and finally felt relieved. Li Shun slowly regained consciousness, only muttering, "So cold." Looking up to see Qinger before him, he thought he must be dreaming, because he had had this dream several times already. Then he lowered his head and dozed off again. But suddenly a hand lifted his chin. While he was still confused, he saw the person before him getting closer. Then he felt a wave of warmth. This instantly woke him up. These gentle and familiar eyes before him. "Isn't this my Qinger?" Their eyes met, and the temperature in the air suddenly soared. Di Sheng happily called out Lang Xiaoqing's name. Such a tsundra man like him was truly irresistible. But in the next second, with a loud clang, the intimate atmosphere instantly vanished. A hand warmer had fallen squarely on the ground. Di Sheng was about to explain, but all the items hidden under the cloak were shaken out by Lang Xiaoqin. "Di Sheng, you deceived me again." The scheming green tea boy, to consummate with the cult leader, took out his precious elixir that he had kept for years. Once taken, the cult leader would lose control and do unspeakable things with him. Thinking of this, the red-clothed follower couldn't help but smile wickedly. "Cult leader, please have some tea." Lang Xiaoqin glanced sideways, about to ask what was in the tea. Unexpectedly, a hand appeared from behind. Bypassing the teacup, he turned to look. The man had already picked up the cup. The green tea boy was shocked. Wasn't this the love rival who was just driven away by the cult leader? Li Shun remarked, "Good tea. The taste is excellent." Why did these words seem so meaningful? The red-haired follower gritted his teeth in anger. "Why are you like a stubborn plaster, sticking to the cult leader? So shameless." Li Shun immediately retorted, "The cult leader told you to leave, yet you didn't. What position are you in to criticize me?" The reckless follower was speechless. He was about to play innocent to gain the cult leader's sympathy, but when he turned around, he found the cult leader's teacup was trembling. "How dare you!" Before the red-haired follower could react, both were thrown out of the room. Li Shun was already used to such treatment. After getting up, he instead consoled the follower not to be sad. The red-haired follower quickly covered his chest with both hands. The man before him had taken the elixir. What if he had thoughts about him? Li Shun was confused. Wasn't this guy very arrogant before? Why did he now look like he'd seen a ghost? He suddenly turned and cornered him against the wall. The follower instantly shrank into a ball. Just as he was about to lift his foot to do something, he felt a wave of heat through his body. His first thought was whether he had a fever. But why was his heart beating so fast? That's when he realized he had been drugged. Unexpectedly, the red-haired follower spoke first, shaking his head saying he didn't drug the tea. Li Shun snorted. "What a self-confession. Seems you quite like cult leader Lang." The red-haired follower, trying to turn enemy into friend, revealed cult leader Lang's dark history. He said, "The cult leader has someone he can't forget, the 14th Hall Master who once betrayed him. So none of us has a chance." Di Sheng deliberately asked, "How do you know he hasn't forgotten that person?" "Because 3 years ago when the Juyo cult was destroyed, my sister saved dear brother. I heard he almost lost his life trying to marry the 14th, but when they were about to wed, the other side suddenly betrayed him. By the time he found out, the demon cult was already destroyed. But even so, when I asked dear brother if he would seek revenge on that traitor, he just answered he never thought about revenge, not even once. Isn't this proof he still has feelings for the 14th Hall Master? So no matter how hard we try, we can't win against him." Li Shan secretly rejoiced. So cult leader Lang cares so much about Chan. Then, he ran to Lang Xiaoqing's house to be a free cleaner. Because making love wasn't the only antidote. When Lang Xiaoqing came out, he immediately turned into a lovesick puppy, hugging Lang Xiaoqing's leg. He even imitated the red-haired follower's coy tone. Cult leader, help me with the poison? I'm so hot. Lang Xiaoqing turned around and kicked him to the ground. But the next second, Li Shan crawled up and clung to him again. This cycle of crawling and kicking repeated several times. Lang Xiaoqing's patience was almost exhausted, but Lin Shan still wouldn't give up. It was because of his love rival's earlier help that he dared to act so brazenly. Lang Xiaoqing, thoroughly annoyed, turned back to his room, opened a drawer, and took out a rope. Looks like he was going to use his trump card. Unexpectedly, Li Shang looked excited seeing this, then said cheekily, "Cult leader, you're so kinky." The next second, Li Shang was tied up and thrown onto the bed, looking even more eager. Lang Xiaoqing removed his gloves and said coldly, "What I'm about to do next, you better endure it." Oh, is the torture starting? This man actually shared with his brothers the intimate moments with his husband, not only thick-skinned, but also shameless. One of the green-haired guards couldn't help but ask, "Aren't you just one-sidedly in love?" From what we just saw, it's not that cult leader Lang has no feelings for you. He absolutely hates you to the bone. I think you should calm down. Don't let your love end up getting you killed. The doctor heard this but wasn't angry. Instead, he laughed and sighed looking at the sky. In my 10 years as an undercover in the demon cult, I can't count how many times I almost got killed by Lang Xiao. The debts between cult leader Lang and me are too numerous to count. I won't die easily here. Several dozen days passed in the blink of an eye. They thought Li Shun would leave after being rejected, but not only did he not leave, he even built a shed with his brothers in front of his husband's door. Such courage and thick skin, I can't help but admire. Their behavior made the demon cult guards unable to watch anymore. They couldn't help but shout at them. "This is absolutely ridiculous. Never seen anyone dare to build a house at the demon cult's entrance." The doctor, being a seasoned fighter, just kept smiling even when being scolded. He even casually handed over a bowl of hot soup. But the guard wasn't grateful, showing complete disdain, saying, "You'd better leave quickly, or when the cult leader returns, you'll face serious consequences." Li Shun took the opportunity to inquire about his husband these years. Is cult leader Lang very fierce? Hearing about cult leader Lang, that small guard immediately became terrified. He remembered the last time he saw cult leader Lang personally execute someone. The scene was so nauseating he couldn't eat for 3 days. Everyone outside hearing this broke into cold sweats, especially Li Shun, who was also a traitor. But speak of the devil, at this moment Lang Xiaoqing returned grandly with his entourage. Li Shun, who had waited for many days, finally saw his beloved again, his eyes lighting up instantly. He immediately waved his hand and commanded, "My men!" The followers immediately sprang into action at his command. Looking at this formation, were they about to fight? The next second, Li Shun stood up, adjusted his cape, and made a stylish entrance. This time he was determined to show his true boyfriend material in front of his husband. The 3 followers behind him acted as atmosphere enhancers, continuously throwing flowers to add a touch of romance to their boss's grand appearance. Li Shan broke into a bright smile upon seeing his husband, but his awkward greeting method shocked all the followers. Damn, this teammate was too difficult to work with. This man was sharing inappropriate stories about his ex-boyfriend with his brothers. The key point was that he even went into details. They'd never seen someone so shameless. Seeing his husband return home, Di Sheng immediately transformed into a lovesick puppy, approaching to show concern, and even thoughtfully prepared warming soup for his husband to drink. But our proud cult leader Lang remained unmoved by his dramatic gestures. Instead, the next second, he raised his hand, knocked over the bowl, then impatiently walked away directly, accompanied by the words, "Get lost, Lu Xia Li Shen." He stood there dumbfounded, but seemed as if he had anticipated this outcome. With a mischievous smile, he immediately pulled out a backup soup bag, persistently offering it again. While professionally introducing the soup's ingredients, Lang Xiaoqing looked at Li Shun, who was like a stubborn plaster, and internally groaned. "Do you really want me to drink it?" Hearing his husband's voice, Li Shun's eyes instantly lit up. In his heart he fantasized, "Sweetheart finally spoke to me. Sweetheart is so handsome." Then, Lang Xiaoqing still used his cold tone and said, "Then kneel down." Li Shun was stunned for a moment, but he still obediently followed orders, dropping to one knee without hesitation. The three followers watching from behind were frozen in shock. After all, their boss was a dignified government official, yet he was letting himself be manipulated so submissively. Did he have no dignity at all? Especially since the other party was the government's longtime enemy. Demon cult's Lang Xiaoqing never imagined Li Shun could humble himself to such an extent. So he took the soup bag and slowly unscrewed it with his slender fingers. Li Shun, kneeling on the ground, looked up eagerly at his husband, his eyes full of anticipation. Husband is finally accepting me. Am I about to succeed? While he was lost in his fantasies. However, in the next second, all his hopes and expectations were instantly extinguished. That's right, Lang Xiaoqing poured the entire bag of soup, not a drop missed, right onto his head. In an instant, the soup cascaded down Li Shun's head. Yet Lang Xiaoqing remained completely unfazed. After emptying the soup, he dropped the bag and left without looking back. Li Shun remained kneeling motionless in place. This scared his followers terribly, who quickly rushed forward to comfort and inquire about him. The three's hearts were in their throats. It was terrible to be treated like this, even with their boss's good temper. He should be angry. At this moment, Li Shun gritted his teeth, his hair covering his expression, hiding his emotions. But he seemed to be trying hard to suppress some force within him, refusing to speak for a long time. Just when his followers were at a loss about what to do, Li Shun finally spoke. Qinger finally looked at me properly. The next second, he happily bloomed into a flower. Then he transformed into a lovesick puppy again, scampering behind Lang Xiaoqing. Cheer, cheer, look at me again. I have plenty more soup. You can pour it wherever you want. Goodness, he truly lived up to his title of seasoned fighter. His thick skin had completely abandoned dignity. This man was being whipped by his husband, yet felt very distressed about it. We've seen devoted followers, but never one so shameless. He could even be called a pure fool. Di Shang was soaked like a drowned rat, yet still eagerly followed behind his husband, trying to please him. However, Lang Xiaoqing remained irritated and didn't want to deal with him at all. Unable to endure anymore, he turned around, grabbed Di Shang's head like picking up a puppy, and brought him to his face. He said fiercely, "Once I treated you like my heart and soul, but you didn't want it. Now you're running here asking to be humiliated. Aren't you cheap?" Then with his other hand, he mockingly patted his cheek. "Does it hurt?" But Li Shun endured the pain and said, "No, it doesn't hurt as much as when you used to go crazy before." He turned his head, revealing seductive eyes. "Right, my love?" Hearing this, Lang Xiaoqing seemed to recall certain memories, tears welling up in his eyes, about to overflow. When he came to his senses, he waved his hand, throwing Di Shang away violently, then turned away himself. He then ordered his subordinates to take him in, clean him up, and send him to the torture chamber. Hearing this, Little C behind him was stunned. But looking at Master Li's expression, he seemed somewhat eager. Shortly after, Li Shun was thrown like garbage into the dark torture chamber. This treatment made Master Li complain. The demon cult has really fallen. Using cold water on the Tianqi cult leader's man. Don't they know it could freeze someone to death? As he was complaining, Lang Xiaoqing's voice suddenly came from behind. Master Li is indeed the same as before, bold but ignorant of death. His slender fingers were playing with a long whip. If others saw this scene, they would probably be scared enough to wet themselves. But as the boss level in Guali can, he became increasingly excited. The next second, he revealed a mischievous, infatuated expression and began his coquettish offensive. How scary is the cult leader going to start? I can't wait anymore. But seeing his shameless behavior, Lang Xiaoqing was furious everywhere. "Come in with me. You surely know what's going to happen to you." Li Shun, seeing his husband angry, wasn't scared at all but became more shy. "I know I will be humiliated thoroughly by you. Worse than death. Hey brother, where's your bottom line? Your dignity? Your face?" Surprisingly, Li Shun's provocative actions made even the fearsome Lang Xiao, whose name alone struck terror, somewhat afraid. This man not only forced his wife to tear his clothes, but also kept whipping him with a small whip. Di Shang, to recapture his former moonlight love, was willing to be whipped by Lang Xiaoqing. The key was his expression of enjoyment, seeming almost eager. He removed his upper garment, kneeling on the ground, whispering, "Qiner is truly still that gentle Qiner." But as soon as he finished speaking, a whip struck his body violently. Di Shang was knocked sideways by the force, almost falling to the ground. When he came to, his face mysteriously flushed red, showing no pain but instead letting out a mocking chuckle. He got up and knelt before Lang, gently rubbing against his master's leg, showing a wicked smile, teasing, "Has the cult leader's madness not been cured yet? Still need to maintain sanity by hurting others?" Lang Shaoqing kicked him away after hearing this, then bent down, pressing the whip against Li Shan's jaw, speaking contemptuously, "Yes, you're now just a handy tool. When you're worn out, I'll discard you just like you once threw me away." After speaking, Lang Shaoqing bit Li Shan, wounding him. This sudden pain made Li Shan cry out softly, but more whiplashes followed. Li Shan was beaten until covered in sweat, his earlier defiance gone. Sweat ran down his snow-white skin, yet he gritted his teeth, not making a sound. Seeing this, Lang Shaoqing finally put away his whip, asking mockingly, "Can't take it anymore?" Hearing this, Li Shan quickly hid his pained expression. He stood up shakily, still smiling. The cult leader is kind to 14, not even using half the strength from before. Hearing the name 14 and seeing Li Shan's shameless behavior, something seemed to trigger inside Lang Shaoqing. The next second, he kicked Li Shan hard to the ground again, then viciously gripped his neck, roaring, "The Lang Shaoqing who once obeyed your every word is dead, killed by your own hands." Anger rushed to his head. Even his clear eyes instantly filled with rage. Di Shang beneath him was nearly suffocating, yet still struggled to call Lang Shaoqing's name. Would he really die at the hands of the one he loved? Never seen such a devoted yet humble love-sick fool. Nearly suffocating from his ex-boyfriend's assault, yet his eyes still full of love. This must be the legendary great lover. This familiar feeling suddenly took Di Sheng back 13 years ago, when young Lang Shaoqing used to torture him like this. It turned out that young Lang Shaoqing, due to the demon cult's evil arts, had a condition where drinking medicine would drive him into a murderous frenzy, turning him into an absolute killing demon. But back then, he was kind and pure. After each frenzy, Lang Shaoqing would feel extremely guilty when he came to his senses, because he didn't want to hurt anyone, but he couldn't control himself. Back then, only Li Shan was willing to approach him. Every time he went berserk, Li Shan would stay by his side, comforting him until he returned to normal. Because of this, Li Shan's body was always covered in scars, but he believed young Master Lang would never kill him. Day after day, year after year, the two of them, supporting and helping each other, sparked the flames of love. Coming back to his senses, Lang Shaoqing saw Li Shan's pale face and weak breathing, and immediately released his grip. He still couldn't bear to let someone he once deeply loved die by his hands. The next moment, he stood up irritably, using boredom as an excuse to leave. But Di Sheng, who had been beaten, felt unsatisfied and put on a pitiful face, saying pitifully, "Cult leader, I'm fine, just a little oxygen deprived." But Lang Shaoqing was impatient, showing disgust, "I'm not in the mood." Then with another swift kick, he sent Li Shan and his clothes flying outside the door. Watching his husband about to leave without looking back, Li Shan finally couldn't contain his anger. "What the hell? Using me and throwing me away? That's too cruel." But while complaining, he reflected on himself. The reason why Wang Shaoqing changed from his pure and kind childhood self to what he is now was completely because of himself. As he thought about it, the next second his head shook like waves, throwing away all troubles. He didn't forget to cheer himself on. "Brave gentleman, don't fear difficulties. The current mission is to appease my dear husband." So the next second, he stuck to Wang Shaoqing like a leech. "Qinger, where are you going? Let me come with you." Well, this was the rhythm of enjoying being abused continuously. Lang Shaoqing raised his foot to press against his throat. "Do you really think I won't take your life?" Even with such humiliating treatment, Li Shan under his foot still bloomed with joy. "What else? If you wanted to kill me, you would have done it earlier. Why wait until now?" Surprisingly, though Arlie likes being abused, his mind remains very clear. Just then, Lang Shaoqing let out a cold laugh. His proud expression showed a hint of challenge. "Then keep kneeling. If you can kneel until I soften my heart, I might reward you with a kiss." Then he turned and left. But who knew that the cult leader's casual promise would be such a huge surprise to Arlie, wanting to get a kiss from his husband? Who would have thought it would be so difficult? The man before us, wearing thin clothes, kneeling in the snowy ground of midwinter, just for a kiss from his husband. The heavy snow continued to fall from the sky, and the cold wind blew painfully to the bone. After who knows how long, Lin Shun's limbs had become stiff from kneeling, almost losing sensation. But even frozen like this, Lin Shun was still thinking about his husband. When will he come to kiss me? But just then, several burly demon cult thugs came from behind. Seeing Li Shun's delicate appearance kneeling there, they grew bold. Well, daring to touch the cult leader's wife. Must be tired of living. At this moment, an ignorant thug directly approached and lifted Li Shen's face, making ill-intentioned remarks. Are you cold? Come warm up inside with me. If I'm happy, I might even put in a good word for you with the cult leader. Indeed, the demon cult was quite open-minded, all sharing the same taste. Li Shun suddenly turned his head, throwing off the thug's hand. No need. I'm not interested in any man other than the cult leader. Then, gazing lovingly in his husband's direction, I'll keep kneeling here, waiting for my husband to kiss me. Hearing this, the thug instantly became furious, his clenched fists about to strike. But all this was observed by Lang Xiaoqin from inside. Even the attending guards who saw this wanted to vent anger on Li Shun's behalf, but Lang Xiaoqin stopped them. He continued calmly drinking his tea. Then the guard thoughtfully walked forward to close the window. He feared the upcoming unsightly scene would offend the master's eyes. But what he didn't know was that the cult leader behind him had already blacklisted this matter. The next second, Lang Xiaoqin sternly rebuked, "Stand down." Looking at his expression, he was clearly worried about his spouse. The guard, watching the scene outside, couldn't help but sigh. Having followed the master for so many years, who knew he enjoyed watching such intense scenes, the scene shifted outside, where the burly man was still hovering between life and death. Dressed like this, aren't you just asking for it? If you keep being shameless, don't blame me for getting rough. Seeing Li Shen's defiance, he became enraged and was about to strike. Then came the sounds of a fierce fight. Afterwards, Li Shun was seen still kneeling unmoved in his original spot, while those thugs were sprawled all over the ground, beaten up, lying on the ground. If the tiger doesn't show its might, you think our Master Li is a sick cat? Besides, even a cornered dog will leap over a wall. Master Li, as a professional devoted follower, saves his gentleness only for his husband. Then Li Shun was seen transforming back into his humble self. When will Qinger finally come to kiss me? Oh my, what kind of inappropriate scene is this? Could it be that our Master Li failed in his pursuit? The story goes back to 3 days ago. After Di Sheng taught those reckless thugs a lesson, he continued kneeling lovingly in place, waiting for his husband to change his mind, just to get one kiss from him, even though his hands and feet had lost all feeling. But thinking back to childhood, Lang Xiaoqin's pure and kind appearance, that gentleness he had destroyed with his own hands, he vowed to restore it personally. Thinking of this, Li Shun's resolve grew stronger. The next second, he shouted towards his husband's direction, "Cult leader, don't worry about me. This is nothing to me. I can hold on for at least 3 days." Hearing the shouts from outside, the cult leader and guard were startled. The guard couldn't help but doubt Master Li's intelligence. Could there be something wrong with this person's mind? Lang Xiaoqin remained expressionless, showing no emotional fluctuation. He stood up and walked to the window, saying coldly, "Leave him be. If he can't last 3 days, just dispose of the corpse as you see fit." Although Lang Xiaoqin gave such a cruel order, his expression looked like he wanted to rush out and embrace Li Shun immediately. In the blink of an eye, 3 days passed. Li Shun in the courtyard was now covered in snow, becoming a snowman. At this time, Lang Xiaoqin finally came out to see him. His slender fingers gently brushed away the snow in front of Li Shun. Then he instinctively placed his hand near Li Shun's nose to check if he was still breathing. Feeling Li Shun's breath, he instantly let out a sigh of relief. Di Shen slowly opened his eyes. By now he was delirious from the cold. When he saw Lang Xiaoqin before him, he could hardly believe it. So he lowered his eyes, wanting to go back to sleep. Must be dreaming. I've dreamed this so many times these past few days. As soon as he finished speaking, Lang Xiaoqin grabbed his chin and pulled it down. While Di Sheng was still in shock, Lang Xiaoqin kissed him. When he felt the familiar, soft, and warm breath on his lips, Di Sheng finally came to his senses. So Qinger really did come, and kissed me as promised. This man who says no with his mouth but is honest with his body, how irresistible. Just as the two were gazing at each other lovingly, a hand warmer fell to the ground with a clang, interrupting their intimate moment. The atmosphere instantly froze. Master Qiao Li's terrified expression suggested he might not survive this. Master Li, Perhaps you should quickly find a hole to hide in. Oh my, what a major scene of embarrassment. Unexpectedly, just as Li Shun finally got a kiss from his husband. Seeing the hand warmer that fell, Li Shun revealed his clever expression. He was seen frantically waving his hands, stuttering, unable to speak. Then the next second, Lang Xiaoqin discovered his shivering. He remembered at the start of the punishment, he was only wearing a single layer. With a shake, a pile of things fell out with a clatter. Spoons, chopsticks, lunchboxes. Really, if not for this, Master Li might have brought his whole house here. Looking at all the items on the ground, both were stunned. This was truly another major death by embarrassment scene. Lang Xiaoqin picked up the thermal lunchbox, anger gradually showing on his face. It turned out these items were all brought by Li Shun's thoughtful subordinates who climbed over the wall at night. They were so worried their master wouldn't make it, they brought food overnight. Li Shun earnestly assured, "Cult leader, don't worry, they weren't discovered by anyone. They snuck in quietly at night." Hearing Li Shun's stream of excuses, Lang Xiaoqin could no longer suppress his anger. The house had been infiltrated. What's there to not worry about? The next second, he grabbed Li Shun's collar, fiercely saying, "You damn cat, you deceived me again." But Lin Shun looked completely innocent, not panicking at all, and argued righteously, "No, you only said I had to kneel here. You didn't say I couldn't eat or wear clothes." Well, our Master Li is quite the clever one. Then he put his hands together with a cheeky expression. "Anyway, I've received the kiss, and no one can take it away." While he was still immersed in sweet happiness, feeling proud, he was suddenly awakened by Lang Xiaoqin's slap. After being slapped, Li Shun was in disbelief. He couldn't understand why his husband was so angry. After venting his anger, Lang Xiaoqin turned to leave, angrily stating he knew he shouldn't have trusted him. But Li Shun, eternally devoted, couldn't let his husband leave like this. Moreover, this was what he had earned after kneeling in the snow for 3 whole days. So he shakily stood up, but his numb legs could no longer support his body. Then with a thud, he was seen desperately grabbing his husband's foot, trying his best to hold on. Seeing such humble pursuit of love, one can't help but feel sorry for our Master Li. Once, the man in the snow got a harsh bloody nose. Any normal person, being humiliated like this, would stand up for themselves. But our Master Li, still lying on the ground like a puppy trying to hold on. Perhaps for our Master Li, a little humiliation means nothing. Making his husband happy is the top priority. Still lying on the ground, he lovingly said, "Wolf cult leader, that slap just now was to punish me for asking for a kiss, right?" At this moment, the wolf cult leader, who was always led by the nose, grew angry without words. He immediately withdrew his foot that Li Shun had grabbed, then lifted his foot and stepped hard on Li Shun's frost-reddened hand. His eyes showed a sharp glint. "Since I can't take back what's been given, I can only do things I like but you hate." After those words, Li Shun remained silent on the ground, his hair hiding his expression. After a moment of silence, he suddenly raised his head. "Oh, so hitting me is what you like? That's perfect. If you want to bully me in the future, you'll have to give me an equal number of kisses. Or you can use other body parts instead of hands too." Oh my, what suggestive words. I want to get off this ride. I want to get off. Lang Xiaoqin frowned even more deeply. He pinched Li Shun's face. The next second, Li Shun instantly transformed into a cute puppy, sticking out his tongue and acting coquettish. "I just want cult leader's kisses." Goodness, this oily behavior really disgusted the cult leader. At this moment, Lang Xiaoqin's hand gripping Li Shun's chin suddenly tightened. He bent down and mockingly said, "I never thought the high-ranking Master Li would speak to me in such a lowly manner. You've truly lost all dignity." As his voice grew louder, the sound of heartbeats also grew stronger. The hand holding his chin slowly slid down. Di Sheng sensed something unusual about his husband, so he gathered his courage to move closer, carefully approaching his husband, and softly probed, "Are you speaking in your right mind right now?" Lang Xiaoqin's mind cleared a bit at these words. His mouth twitched impatiently. With an annoyed click of his tongue, the next second, he heartlessly kicked Di Sheng away again. Being thrown out again without warning left him confused. Why was Qing'er's mood always like a woman's? So unpredictable. While he was puzzled, 3 subordinates called out heart-wrenchingly from behind, "Boss is actually alive and back." Really, who treats their spouse so violently? The cute Li Shun, who was thrown out by his husband, was seen hugging a hand warmer to ease the awkwardness. His little face was red from the cold, yet he bravely comforted his shocked subordinates. "Don't worry, how could your Li Si's body fall so easily?" But before he could finish speaking, his eyes rolled back and his legs gave out. The frightened subordinates quickly carried their boss inside. They served tea, brought medicine, and added firewood, bustling about, truly proving themselves to be their boss's caring supporters. Seeing his subordinates' panicked state, he spoke up, "Don't panic. It's just a small fever. Back home, 2 days of sleep would cure this." At these words, the subordinates panicked even more. The illness must be serious if he's speaking nonsense. Then they thought, right, we could ask the demon cult for help. Their rooms must be much warmer than our earthen houses. They stood up to go ask for outside help, but the next second, the hand that had just given their boss acupuncture was grabbed by Li Shun. His fever-flushed face still wore a foolish smile. "Do you know why I forced myself to maintain my internal energy and deliberately didn't collapse in front of Lang Xiaoqi?" Yellow Hair was shocked. "What? Were you sick all along and enduring it? Haven't you always wanted to reconcile with the wolf cult leader? This is such a good opportunity." But Li Shun quietly closed his eyes. "I don't want to exploit his sympathy anymore. The wolf cult leader has already given me too much." As he spoke, he fell asleep. In his dreams, he returned to 13 years ago. He remembered his childhood, the times when he and young Master Wolf relied on each other. It turned out that every demon cult leader had to practice a certain martial art technique. However, this technique had the side effect of driving people mad. Every so often, they needed to release the symptoms through medicinal soup. This was why Lang Xiaoqing would go crazy after drinking the medicine. Since then, Li Shun became Lang Xiaoqing's punching bag. Every time Lang Xiaoqing went berserk, he would leave Li Shun covered in injuries. And Lang Xiaoqing, feeling guilty but helpless, could only give Li Shun gifts as compensation. The doctor would bring candy with the medicine each time, personally feeding it to Lang Xiaoqing. Naturally, Lang Xiaoqing became increasingly dependent on him, and their relationship grew warmer. "Oh my, could it be that Master Li has fallen for someone else? And where are you putting that hand? It's making people imagine things. After shipping this passionate CP for so long, I'll be the first to object." That morning, Li Shun, not yet fully recovered from his illness, was awakened by noisy sounds from outside before he could get up. Outside, a man in golden clothes led a group of rough-looking people to the demon cult. Judging by their manner and expressions, they clearly weren't friendly. This man claimed to be the son of the Martial Arts Alliance leader and said he came to eliminate the demon cult. The yellow-haired guard, seeing their aggressive approach, frantically explained, "You've got the wrong place. We're Imperial officials." He pointed at his official uniform as proof, but that person refused to believe them, insisting they were in league with the demon cult. At this point, Li Shun came out fully dressed, calmly folding his arms across his chest. "Heroes, don't be hasty. We're here on the Emperor's orders to establish relations with the Joyo cult. We certainly have an imperial edict." After speaking, Li Shun turned to go back inside to fetch the edict as proof, but that righteous fellow objected. He held his sword and shouted at Li Shun, "Don't let him go inside." When a suspect tries to retreat, they're either escaping or preparing bombs. That's how it always happens in mystery shows. At these words, everyone was dumbfounded. "Do you think this is a TV drama? He must be an idiot." However, as Wei Jingyi spoke, he worked himself up into a frenzy. Baring his teeth, he thrust his sword at Li Shun. "How funny. This fool must think our Master Li is defenseless." As Wei Jingyi's sword was about to pierce him, with just a light pinch of his fingertips, he easily controlled the sword. Then he said contemptuously, "Young man, it's not good to fight without honor." Wei Jingyi tried to pull back his sword, but of course, it was all in vain. Li Shun stood motionless in his spot, and with one word, he bent the sword with his bare hands. The next second he suddenly let go, and the rebounding sword clanged against that fool's forehead. The three subordinates watching weren't surprised at all, but rather looked as if they had expected it. Although our boss usually isn't serious and acts childish, when it comes to fighting, if he claims second place, no one dares claim first. Of course, that's only when he doesn't want to lose. After an intense fight, Li Shun, not wanting to escalate things, whispered in Wei Jingyi's ear, "If you're smart, leave quickly. Otherwise, you won't even know how you died. And wouldn't you know it, Just as he finished speaking, they heard the main door creak open. Lang Xiaoqin came out and saw the two of them embracing intimately. Li Shun was even protecting the other person's waist. The demon cult leader's expression. It's true that when you think of someone, you can't hide it in your eyes. Damn, what's it like to be caught cheating by your ex? At this moment, Li Shang was cursing internally. Just when he'd nearly appeased his husband, things were clearly going back to square one. He pushed Wei Jingyi away and walked to his husband to explain, flustered and anxious to clear things up. Qinger, I wasn't cheating. It's just a misunderstanding. Would you believe me if I said we were fighting? Lang Xiaoqin remained cold and replied, Oh, you're quite practiced at explaining. Did I ask you anything? The next second, Li Shang was terrified by this sudden pressure. He frantically waved his hands, humbly saying, Not practiced. I just worried you'd misunderstand that I'd fallen for someone else. Just like a typical suspicious spouse's response. Our wolf leader didn't want to hear his excuses and pushed him aside. At this moment, the fearless Wei Jingyi tried to take advantage while they were talking, planning a sneak attack. Just a second ago, he was still shouting about destroying the demon cult. But the next second, Lang Xiaoqing's palm strike left him immobilized. Everyone was shocked by Lang Xiaoqing's move, an instant kill, without even using weapons, just internal energy to disable his opponent's fighting ability. Terrifying. Then, Lang Xiaoqing approached Wei Jingyi with a dark expression. Thinking of how this man was just intimate with his wife, he raised his hand without a word, ready to execute him on the spot. Wei Jingyi was so scared he almost wet himself, just as Lang Xiaoqing's hand was about to strike Wei Jingyi's face. At this critical moment, Li Shang called out to stop him. He ran forward and grabbed his husband's hand, pleading, Sorry, but this can't be explained in a few words. He's the Martial Alliance leader's son. If he dies by your hand, the demon cult will never know peace again. Unexpectedly, Li Shang's earnest persuasion reached Lang Xiaoqin's ears, as if he was protecting Wei Jingyi. Li Shang was bewildered. What kind of misunderstanding was this? But even though his husband wouldn't listen to anything now, Li Shang continued trying to persuade him. Impulse is the devil, wolf leader. These people are young masters and ladies from major sections. Killing them might bring collective retaliation from all martial arts forces. Lang Xiaoqin coldly snorted and replied arrogantly, Humph, you think I'm afraid? Then with an evil smile, coming from Master Li, these words are truly ironic. As he spoke, Lang Xiaoqin's eyes instantly turned purple-red with anger. This stance, surely he wasn't about to go on a rampage for his wife? Damn, first time seeing a jealous man look so cool. Actually willing to kill for his wife. Li Shang noticed something wrong with his husband. He looked up worriedly, eyes pleading as he watched him, fearing something would happen, but that fool Wei Jingyi kept adding fuel to the fire. At this moment, a black shadow flashed in front of Li Shang. Before anyone could react, Wei Jingyi was struck again and coughed up blood. Our wolf leader was quite strange. Lang Xiaoqin had completely gone berserk now. Seeing his husband in this state, Li Shang couldn't understand how Xiaoqin could go mad without drinking the medicine. In the emergency, there was no time to think too much. He immediately told those troublemakers to leave quickly. Having grown up with Lang Xiaoqin, Li Shang understood his temperament very well. He knew no one could stop his husband when he was like this. If they didn't leave, they would all die here. But unfortunately, it was already too late. Lang Xiaoqin waved both hands, lifting all the surrounding debris. The next second, he hurled it toward the crowd. On the other side, Li Shang's heart ached seeing his husband go berserk. He didn't want his husband to become like this, so he tried hard to think of ways to bring him back to his senses. He immediately ordered his subordinates to help evacuate the crowd. They anxiously asked what to do. Li Shang pulled out a whip from his waist with a sharp crack. Then with a meaningful expression, he said, Of course I'm going to find a way to tie my husband up. After speaking, he rushed toward his husband. Lang Xiaoqin's guards were shocked. Was this person stupid? Running in like this was just asking to die. But considering the cult leader's feelings for Li Shang, they had to give a friendly warning. When the wolf leader goes berserk, he doesn't recognize anyone. Don't try to use ridiculous emotions to pacify him. Some girls tried that before and ended badly. But Li Shang laughed at their words. Are all demon cult members this sweet? You're actually worried about me. The guards felt nauseated hearing this and stamped their feet in anger. Don't think too much. We just fear the cult leader will blame us if you die. But seeing Li Shang's confident bouncing around, he clearly had a way to stop his husband's rampage. The next second, he controlled his husband from behind with the whip, sighing contentedly. Haven't seen such an adorable chinger in so long. I really miss this. Good grief. Only the ever-fearless Master Li could say such things. The wolf leader who kills without blinking was now obediently kneeling on the ground. What method did Li Shang use to make his husband so compliant? After an intense fight, the subordinates came before Li Shang and reported, "Boss, all the troublemakers have been cleared out." Li Shang dusted off his hands with a look of accomplishment. His face, body, and arms were covered in marks from the fight. The berserk Lang Xiaoqin was under his control, blindfolded and kneeling. Nearby, Guard Chu was restrained by the Imperial City's martial champion Shaoli. Seeing his cult leader so humiliated, he struggled with all his might. He roared in anguish, "How dare you do this to our cult leader? Do you think the Nine Nether cult has no one?" But all his rage was futile. Li Shang had already seen through his thoughts. Li Shang waved his hand to calm him down. "Don't panic, Brother Chu. You haven't called for help because you know that right now, no one in the demon cult can stabilize Lang Xiaoqin." Chu Xian, whose thoughts were exposed, fell silent. Li Shang wiped the blood from his face wound, his eyes softening. This isn't a long-term solution. Though the side effects of the demon cult's dark arts are terrible, killing isn't the only way to suppress them. Actually, consuming enough blood works too. Then he put his bloodied hand to his husband's mouth. Lang Xiaoqin, like a little cat, stuck out his tongue and licked it. Guard Chu watched in disbelief. How is this possible? All these years, the cult leader never showed any desire for others' blood. Li Shang, like a mother, explained while feeding him, "Of course, he only responds to my blood. After all, since childhood, I've always used this method of blindfolding and feeding blood to suppress his condition. After feeding a cat for over 10 years, even the most antisocial one will form habits." Watching his husband eat with relish, Li Shang's eyes were full of love. Though he hates me now, he still seems to remember the taste of this blood. He turned his head, pouting, and mumbled, "Such an adorable chinger should only be seen by me. Xiao Lu, quickly get rid of this clueless wooden post." Oh my, since when did our Master Li become so petty? He's really pushing his luck now. Besides Master Li, I've never seen anyone with such skill. Now that he's got his husband under control, will the next step be winning his love back? Li Shang, while feeding his husband, asked Xiao Lu to quickly take away this unnecessary person. The green-haired guard followed orders, taking Chu Xian away while reassuring him, "Don't worry, we still need the demon cult support. We won't harm the wolf leader. Besides, your cult leader hates our boss so much, he'll definitely leave on his own once he regains consciousness." Li Shang broke into a sweat hearing this. That comment was unnecessary. But no matter what was said, Chu Xian kept struggling desperately, refusing to leave his cult leader. He shouted at Li Shang, "Even if your threats work, you'll have to come to our Nine Nether cult to claim him." Li Shang and the green-haired guard were stunned for a moment. The next second, both broke into smiles. They'd been trying to enter the demon cult, but kept getting driven away. Now this played right into Master Li's hands. The green-haired guard's attitude suddenly did a 180-degree turn, picking up Chu Xian and walking in. "Then we'll respectfully comply." Soon after, Li Shang entered openly and legitimately, feeling extremely pleased. Looking at his not-so-clever expression, he seemed like he was about to win his love's heart. It was all too easy. "Not so bright, Brother Chu. I won't speak of this great favor." At this moment, Lang Xiaoqin suddenly broke free one-hand chain, baring his teeth and begging for blood. Li Shang soothed him like a child. "Be good, stay still, and I'll reward you with blood." Then he tore open his own clothes, revealing the wounds from their recent fight. Smelling Li Shang's blood, Lang Xiaoqin indeed calmed down. He slowly moved closer to Li Shang and began to taste carefully. Who would have thought the fearsome wolf leader would now be as docile as a kitten? Lying on the bed, Li Shang began to dream. If only he had understood his own feelings earlier, perhaps he wouldn't have betrayed him then. Seeing how docile the person before him was, Li Shang felt sorry for him. He could have killed the troublemakers with one strike, but deliberately missed. He could easily break the chains on his wrists, yet he obediently allowed himself to be handled. No matter how cold he pretended to be, he was still that gentle child. Then he gently stroked his husband's head and embraced him. "I'll stay with you from now on. Even if you drive me away, I won't leave." Li Shang, still feverish, couldn't hold on any longer. The next moment, he fell into a deep sleep. Goodness, our Master Li's path to winning back his husband was too rough. Finally getting in legitimately, just when he was about to win his love back, he almost lost him to that green tea bitch. Late that night, Lang Xiaoqin regained his senses. He looked puzzled at the feverish Li Shang on the bed, not understanding why the doctor was here. But seeing Li Shang injured and feverish, he felt helpless. He easily broke the chains on his wrists while muttering complaints. Getting so worked up with such a severe cold, really don't know what he's thinking. Though complaining verbally, his actions were honest. He then took out a bottle of medicine. After biting open the cork, he gently sprinkled it on Li Shang's wounds. He carefully bandaged them, and before leaving, Sundara-like, said, "I'm not being nice to you. Don't misunderstand." But the next second, he secretly sent guards to fetch a physician. Haha, this man who acts tough but is gentle at heart is quite charming. The next morning, bird song and fragrant flowers woke Li Shang from his deep sleep. Lying in such a comfortable and soft bed, Master Li could hardly believe it. When he first opened his eyes, he thought he was in heaven. A second later, he sat up abruptly, realizing this was his husband's bedroom. Seeing the blanket his husband had covered him with, he was stunned, then fell back down with a face full of happiness. Using Chinger's pillow, covered by Chinger's blanket, this feeling was too wonderful, and it even had Chinger's scent. Thinking of this, Li Shang unconsciously started rolling around on the bed, feeling delighted as if this was a gift from heaven. "Hey Master Li, could you show some restraint?" Just as he was perversely thinking about leaving his own scent, a conversation from outside interrupted him. "Brother Qin, don't ignore me when I heard about your condition. I was so worried and came right away." The owner of the voice was a person in pink clothing, hovering around the wolf leader, speaking coquettishly. This green tea bitch dressed like a woman was actually Dr. Huai's younger brother. When Huaiji learned about Wolf Shaoqin sending for Dr. Huai, he intercepted the message and prevented it from being delivered. How impressive, such scheming, truly worthy of being called good tea. However, our wolf leader didn't want to deal with him at all, coldly pulling his hand away. "Call Dr. Huai here." At this point, Huaiji put on a professional green tea expression. "Brother, don't you like me anymore? I'm so hurt. Put away your cheap acting. It's nauseating." And Master Li still playing around in there? "If you don't come out soon, your husband will be stolen." This is ridiculous. I've seen many green tea bitches, but never a male one. Can you believe this pink and delicate person is a man? And a complete master of manipulation. Just as he was acting cute and pitiful, launching his charm offensive at Wolf Shaoqin, our Master Li finally came out to protect his interests. He swooped in front of the green tea bitch, pressuring him. "You little brat, give up your dangerous thoughts." The wolf leader is a married man, but unexpectedly, the green tea bitch pointed at Li Shang and turned to Wolf Xiao. "Brother, who is this old-fashioned man coming out of your bedroom?" "Wow, turns out he's a high-level green tea player." Li Shang, being belittled, was too angry to speak. However, Lang Shaoqin didn't answer the green tea's question, but instead put on a disgusted expression and asked if Li Shang was feeling better. Li Shang, surprised by his husband's concern, started to show off, "Thank you for bandaging me." But before he could finish, Lang Shaoqin interrupted, "If you're better, stop being an eyesore here." Master Li was shocked at these words, showing that disbelieving expression again. Hey, the plot shouldn't develop like this. But while some are sad, others are happy. The green tea bitch was delighted to see Li Shang's setback. He immediately clung to Wolf Shaoqin's arm, saying smugly, "Did you hear that? Brother wants you to get lost. Don't be an eyesore here." As he spoke, his true nature was revealed, showing a cunning and scheming face. Unexpectedly, the wolf leader remained impartial, pulling his arm away sternly. The next second, the green tea started his act again. Putting on an innocent face when Wolf Shaoqin ignored him, he turned to target Li Shang. "It's all your fault. If it weren't for you, brother wouldn't scold me." Good grief. Li Shang had to admire his acting skills. The green tea bitch even arrogantly rode high over Li Shang, giving him a little punch. At this point, Li Shang didn't want to deal with him, and instead asked about his husband's condition. But the next second, he was kicked away by the beautiful Lang again. Watching Master Li take 3 invisible kicks from his husband, it somehow made my heart ache. Faced with his cold husband, Li Shang sighed helplessly. What could he do when his husband was like this? He kept comforting himself not to argue with children who don't know better, and he shouldn't be unreasonable. So, unable to do anything about his husband, he could only bow and leave quietly. He'd have to find another chance to coax his husband later. Damn, this green tea bitch is so calculating. To become the leader's spouse, he even secretly drugged the leader, really using any means to achieve his goal. After being driven out by his husband, the doctor felt a bit dejected. He knew his husband well. The reason his husband hadn't confronted that green tea was definitely out of respect for Dr. Huai's face, making it inappropriate to take direct action. Meanwhile, that white paper was still buzzing around Wolf Xiaoqin like a fly, narcissistically thinking, brother must like me. He's always calm with me. He only yells at that annoying person. This must be preferential treatment, right? This is ridiculous. Who gave him such confidence? It makes me want to slap him. On the other side, hearing the words preferential treatment made Li Sheng recall how young Master Wolf used to get angry at him when they were young. Once when Li Sheng went to play with the maids without taking Wolf Xiaoqin along, Wolf Xiaoqin flew into a rage when he returned, complaining about being left behind. He cried and snuggled in Li Sheng's arms, acting spoiled. Before Li Sheng could explain, Wolf Xiaoqin shouted, "You belong to young master. You can only be with me forever and ever." Lin Shen laughed upon hearing this. Then he held his husband and comforted him. "Young master, don't you find it strange? You seem very composed with others, but you only like to bully me." At that time, Lang Xiaoqing seemed to realize he was being a bit improper and smiled gently. "That's because others' matters don't concern me. Only you matter to me." After saying this, he shyly hid in Li Sheng's arms to apologize. Thinking of this, Li Sheng stopped his departing steps. He suddenly understood that the so-called preferential treatment had never disappeared. Meanwhile, the green tea Huai she kept endlessly harassing Lang Xiaoqin, while Lang Xiaoqin remained silent with his hands supporting his chin. Seeing Lang Xiaoqin's continued indifference and coldness, Huai Ji developed a crooked idea. He was seen dropping a colorless and tasteless chocolate bean into the teacup. Then his evil smile slightly curved up as he plotted his scheme. Once the leader drinks this, he'll be consumed by uncontrollable desire. Soon I'll be the Joyo sect leader's spouse. With that thought, he handed the teacup to Wolf Xiaoqin. Good grief, this kid. Does he think our sect leader is stupid? Hey schemer, stay away from our sect leader. Never seen such a vicious green tea before. The ill-intentioned person was seen offering the drug tea to Wolf Xiaoqin. The sect leader slightly frowned at this time, but still remained silent. He seemed to have already discovered Huai Ji's scheme and knew something was wrong with the tea. He raised his hand, looking for an excuse to politely decline. Just then, the teacup was suddenly snatched by a hand. The next second, Li Sheng was seen drinking it all down without hesitation. This action stunned both people present. Having not drunk water since yesterday, he finished the tea without leaving a drop. The key is that Master Li even looked satisfied after drinking it. The taste is quite good. Seeing his plan exposed, Bai Ji angrily grabbed the teacup in humiliation and rage. The leader has driven you away, yet you still cling on like a lapdog. So shameless. But this time, with experience and confidence, Li Shen remained completely calm. To deal with such people, you have to be even more shameless. Li Shen was seen approaching the green tea bitch, pressuring him. Didn't the leader drive you away too? What position are you in to criticize me? This intimidated the green tea. Turning to see Wolf Leader had apparently discovered the tea's secret. He didn't know how to continue the act. At this point, Wolf Xiaoqing stopped pretending to be unaware. The next second, with a shout, both were thrown out the door. While the green tea was still confused, Li Shen, already used to this, dusted off his bottom, stood up, and consoled like an owner. Don't mind Xiaoqin's attitude too much. He's just annoyed. I have no ill will towards you. Of course, it would be better if you just gave up. But just then, Huai Ji suddenly shook off Li Shen. He feared Li Shen, who had drunk the drugged tea, might have ill intentions. He hadn't heard a word Li Shen said. Li Shen was full of question marks, watching him act, thinking this person must be an idiot. As a doctor, Li Shen noticed his attitude change and thought something must be wrong. They were confrontational before. Why was he so scared now? So he cornered the little green tea, ready to act. During the interrogation, he felt his body suddenly getting hot. At first, he thought it was his cold not fully recovered. But as his heart beat faster and faster, he finally realized something was wrong. So that cup of tea had been drugged. Li Shen kicked the wall with a bang. Oh my, Master Li, you shouldn't do that. Lang the Beauty will definitely divorce you if he knows. I swear this is the strongest wingman I've ever seen, bar none. The drugged Li Shen cornered the little green tea, almost doing indescribable things. The frightened Huai Ji, fearing for his chastity, tearfully confessed without being forced. I wouldn't drug Brother Qin just to force a marriage. Haha, This fool revealed his motive. Well then, Li Shun wanted to continue probing this fool's words, so he deliberately lowered his voice. Oh, so you quite like the wolf leader? The terrified Huaiji cried, trying to quickly distance himself. No matter what, let me explain. Wolf leader and I are impossible. He's always had someone he can't forget. That's the Juyo sect's 14th who betrayed him. The hall master suddenly heard his former title. He was a bit stunned but forcefully suppressed his wild joy. He continued probing. Oh? How do you know he hasn't forgotten? Baiji had no choice but to tell everything he knew. It turns out when Juyo sect was destroyed, it was his sister who saved Lang Xiaoqin. At that time, Lang Xiaoqin almost lost his life trying to marry Li 14th. But when they were about to have their grand wedding, Li 14th suddenly betrayed them. Lang Xiaoqin discovered it too late, and the demon sect was beyond saving. Even so, when later asked if Wolf Leader would practice ultimate martial arts to take revenge on the traitor, Wolf Leader only replied he never thought about revenge. Baiji got more excited as he spoke. Isn't this clearly showing he still has feelings for Li 14th? Hearing this, Li Shun blushed knowing his husband still loved him. Meanwhile, Wolf Xiaoqin was inside, tidying up the bed Li Shun had messed up in the morning. He picked up the pillow and arranged it gently. While complaining, living alone for 3 years, yet still so messy, he was seen picking up the bedsheet, bringing it close to smell. Seems our wolf leader also misses his wife's scent. Smelling the familiar scent, Wolf Xiaoqin was lost in thousands of thoughts. He recalled himself 13 years ago when he regained consciousness from his frenzy, seeing his hands covered in blood, and Yu's body lying on the ground. He felt heartbroken and guilty but powerless. Filled with remorse, he kept beating himself up, saying, "I'm just scum. Why wasn't I the one who got hurt?" At that moment, a hand stopped his self-harming behavior. Li Shang was seen lying on the ground, barely able to speak, dying. "You're not scum. You're different from them." Wolf Xiaoqin felt even more guilty, tears welling up in his eyes, full of heartache. Being tortured feels good momentarily, keeps feeling good if it continues. To hold your beloved, pursuing a husband requires thick skin and no bottom line. This is Master Li's life motto for pursuing his husband. The wolf leader was cleaning up the bed where Li Shun had rolled around. Lost in thought, after returning, he was determined to drive Li Shun away no matter what. For this, he deliberately allowed Huaiji's behavior. But thinking about Li Shang still being sick and having drunk the aphrodisiac, he couldn't help but worry. At Sundara, just one last look revealed his true feelings. With a sigh, the door opened, and the scene before him shocked the wolf leader. Although it wasn't surprising that Li Shun could do this, he still couldn't believe what he was seeing. Li Shun, as if on a caffeine high, was holding a small cloth, wiping everything up and down, busily cleaning the house until it sparkled. It was absurd. Wolf Xiaoqin's face showed complete confusion. Seeing his husband come out, he quickly stopped wiping, dabbed his sweat and said, "Well, I'm sick, right? With nowhere to vent, I just wanted to do some major housework to release some energy." He then put on a childish expression seeking praise. Wolf Xiaoqin saw his clingy behavior and became increasingly annoyed. Originally worried about his illness causing problems, now it seemed he had worried for nothing. Seeing Li Shun was fine, he turned to leave. But Li Shun, enlightened by his rival's words, couldn't let his husband leave so easily. He transformed into a little puppy, grabbing his husband's leg. "Leader, since you're here, why not help cure my poison? I'm so hot." Lang Xiaoqin reproached with disgust, "Don't talk like Huaiji. Isn't it disgusting?" Sensing his husband's anger, Li Shun deliberately provoked, "I guess young, pretty boys are more to your liking." Having gained confidence, he dared to talk back to his husband. Sure enough, Wolf Xiaoqin became angrier and delivered a solid kick, pushing Li Shun away. But the next second, Li Shun stuck to him again like glue, thinking happily, "Thanks to that young master's help, or I'd have thought you really hated me." This cycle of kicking away and sticking back continued, back and forth countless times. The doctor persistently held onto his husband's leg, refusing to let go, crying dramatically, "Please, leader, stop kicking me away. It's troublesome to crawl back." Thus, under Master Li's persistent efforts, Wolf Xiaoqin had no choice but to let him be and stop responding. The man before him was tied up and thrown onto the bed. Looking at this situation, could it be, will Master Li be abused until he's completely broken again? If that's the case, he would love it. Li Shan stuck to Lang Xiaoqin like a persistent dog, refusing to let go no matter how much he was scolded or hit. Dizzy, he only felt that Qin'er's body was so cool and comfortable. At this moment, a flash of ferocity appeared in Lang Xiaoqin's eyes. Looks like I need to teach you a lesson. Hearing this, Master Li became more excited. Come on, wanna fight? I've been feeling so pinned up. Then Lang Xiaoqin was seen opening a drawer, seemingly searching for something. Meanwhile, Li Shun still hugged his husband from behind, not moving an inch, afraid he would despise him. Lang Xiaoqin took out a red rope, snapping it with a pa sound while glaring at Li Shun, who had a small head full of questions. Shortly after, Li Shun was tied up, unable to move his hands and feet. Even in this state, he excitedly remarked, "Qin'er truly knows what he's doing." However, Lang Xiaoqin didn't understand what he was saying. He calmly lit a candle, maintaining his cold tone. "Don't misunderstand. I only want revenge for my father's murder from years ago, and for your betrayal of our 10-year relationship." But Li Shun, who already knew Lang Xiaoqin's true intentions, didn't believe these words at all. "Keep pretending. Too bad young Master Lang's thoughts are completely transparent to me now." Though thinking this, he still pretended to resist. The situation back then wasn't what you think. The old leader's evil technique went wrong. Before he could finish, Lang Xiaoqin gagged him with a cloth. While removing his gloves, he threatened, "If you can't accept what I'm about to do, shake your head. Of course, even if you shake your head off, I won't stop." This is moving a bit fast. Caught me off guard. Then he leaned down, his cold hands touching Li Shun's cheeks. Li Shun lay bound, unable to move. He struggled desperately to resist, but it was all futile. His eyes revealed pure terror. However, Lang Xiaoqin was getting excited. With a meaningful look, he said, "Scared? It's too late now." He then moved close to Li Shun's ear, taking a deep breath. "Oh my, everyone, I can't watch this anymore. Let's end this episode here. Goodbye to this cold, obsessive, and perverted man. He's really determined to go all the way in tormenting his spouse." Li Shun shuddered at the sudden wetness. The next second, Lang Xiaoqin turned his body over, feeling Li Shun's body trembling. His eyes showed a hint of anger. This isn't going well. Hearing the complaints from the bed, he wasn't pleased. He showed a grimacing, cynical expression, defending himself. "How can you say a man isn't capable?" While he was chattering nonstop, a crisp slap landed on his bottom, instantly silencing him. Several more solid slaps followed. Having suffered, Li Shun no longer believed this was just punishment. The force was so heavy, he must be using internal energy. At this rate, no amount of flesh would help. But Lang Xiaoqin, as if seeking revenge, continued relentlessly, getting more excited with each strike. He gritted his teeth, harshly saying, "Disobedient dogs like you should be locked up, never allowed to leave. Then you won't do such things." Remembering painful memories, he grabbed Li Shun's head in agony. "Why? Li Shun, how could you be so heartless?" 3 years ago during the demon sex chaos, the young wolf master looked at Li Shun standing on the opposite side. With his last hope, he asked, "It's not true, right? They all say you killed Ifu." He couldn't believe the person closest to him, the one he trusted most, would do such a thing. Even his questioning was phrased in a way hoping for the answer he wanted to hear. He hoped Li Shun would tell him it was all false. However, reality struck him hard. Li Shun coldly said just one, "Sorry, I did it." He completely broke down. He still refused to believe Li Shun would betray him. The former Shirsi had been so good to him, even risking his life to suppress his demon energy, even smiling at him while injured. But the next moment, Li Shun shattered his illusions. Because he deserved to die. That's all. Hua Luo Li Shun pointed his sword at him. The young wolf master was devastated, tears flowing endlessly. He couldn't accept betrayal from his most beloved. Seeing the young master so heartbroken, Li Shun's heart softened. He lowered his sword, sighing, "If only I had known it would be like this." With that, he turned to leave. But Lang Xiaoqin, without answers, wouldn't let him go easily. He rushed forward and tackled Li Shun to the ground, continuing to question, "Was all your kindness fake? Was it all for merit with the imperial court through final betrayal?" Li Shun, lying on the ground, looked at him gently. "If I said it wasn't, would you believe me?" The young wolf master fell silent at these words, his eyes welling up again. Seeing the young master still willing to believe him, Li Shun reached out and embraced him. kissing his forehead. Thank you for still being willing to listen to me. It was all worth it. The man before him was bound hand and foot, looking like a vulnerable lamb. Little did he know he had just been through an intense battle. Lang Xiaoqin, emerging from his memories, lifted Li Shun's chin teasingly. How are you already at your limit? Looking at Li Shun on the bed, his face flushed and breathing heavily, clearly exhausted from the ordeal. Seeing Li Shun in such a disheveled state, Lang Xiaoqin continued to mock. How laughable. Back then, after saying those words, you knocked me unconscious. Regret it now? Li Shun struggled to turn over, avoiding mention of the past, just smiling and changing the subject. Sect leader Wolf has been so lively these days. I can barely handle it. Lang Xiaoqin hadn't expected Li Shun to be so cunning. Ungrateful, the next moment he covered his mouth, then leaned down menacingly. Answer or die. Unable to breathe, Li Shun looked at the ruthless man before him, his eyes full of terror and disbelief. Evening came. Lang Xiaoqin had only meant to scare and teach his disobedient spouse a lesson, but things got out of hand. His spouse had fainted. Looking at the unconscious Li Shun, the double-standard Lang Xiaoqin called for the famous Dr. Huai Yin to examine him, this female doctor who shared his interests. After examining Li Shun, the beautiful Dr. Huai looked worried. He's not in serious condition. The real problem is you. You're worsening demon energy. You can't experience such extreme emotions, or you'll lose control and fall into demonic cultivation. Listening to Huai Yin's rambling, Lang Xiaoqin looked worriedly at his spouse, only perfunctorily responding, I understand. But Huai Yin seemed to see through everything. Your eyes turning red at the sight of your lover. That's not convincing at all. Hearing the term, lover, the sect leader became unsettled. Huai Yin continued assertively, your eyes have already betrayed you. Even a fool can see it. Stop pretending. Though I feel sorry for my love-struck brother. However, Lang Xiaoqin's expression turned serious, and he asked something shocking, whether Huai Yin could make someone tell the truth. Huai Yin looked confused, but the next moment, she seemed to realize something, her pupils dilating in shock. Looking at Li Shun, then at the silent Lang Xiaoqin, wait, don't tell me. He's that Li Shursi who destroyed your family? This is too ridiculous. What kind of person even dares to come back? The sect leader remained silent at this painful reminder. Huai Yin, having processed this, put down what she was holding. Since you haven't killed him yet, could there be some hidden truth behind that betrayal? At the word betrayal, Lang Xiaoqin lowered his eyes, tears welling up again. There's no hidden truth. He deceived me and wants to continue deceiving me. I just want to know what he's hiding. Now that he's back, he needs to repay everything he owes from before. As he spoke, his hand gently caressed Li Shun's chin, then leaned down close to his lips. Right, little traitor? This man was such a hypocrite. One moment torturing his spouse until he couldn't breathe, the next moment wanting to kiss him. After the candles went out and Lang Xiaoqin and Huai Yin left, Li Shun was left sleeping peacefully, showing no signs of disturbance. Suddenly his eyes shot open. He sat up like a corpse coming to life. It's over. It's over. Qinger wants to give me truth serum. What a grudge. Apparently, Li Shun had been pretending to sleep and heard every word of their conversation. Li Shun's face was filled with terror. What's worse was that he couldn't tell the truth. He was at a loss for what to do in his panic. In desperation, he decided to flee first, disappear for a while, make up a story later. He couldn't let Qinger know the truth. His husband's life mattered more than his own. The pitiful man completely misunderstood what the other was angry about. When he arrived at the small house outside the demon sect to meet with his subordinates, he opened the door to find it empty. Little did he know his 3 subordinates were still guests at the demon sect, gathered around a table, happily playing mahjong all night. Just as Li Shun was complaining about his subordinates failing him at a crucial moment, a rustling sound came from the bushes behind. It was Wei Jingyi, that fool. He was wearing a black cloak, looking very suspicious, but he said he wasn't here to cause trouble for the demon sect, but to find Li Shun. The brave Li Shun lowered his guard upon hearing this. Arms crossed, remembering their previous conversation, he said, about that mystery drama brother, are you also a time traveler? Wei Jingyi looked surprised. Senior, you really are one. Then, as if seeing a lifeline, he hugged Li Shun tightly. After meeting you that day, I felt your reactions and way of speaking were very modern. So I specifically asked the system, so you're that undercover agent who single-handedly destroyed the entire demon sect? Wei Jingyi instantly turned into a fanboy, excitedly stepping forward. But Li Shun looked disgusted. How did I become famous? Let's skip the pleasantries. This sect leader was too flirtatious. Even with his spouse unconscious, he couldn't resist being intimate. As the saying goes, when fellow countrymen meet, tears well up in their eyes. Especially when meeting someone from the same era in this world of time travel. But would you believe it? Li Shun's ultimate mission was to kill the wolf sect leader. It turned out these time travelers were all near death in reality, and only by completing the system's missions could they return home healthy. Wei Jingyi's mission coincidentally aligned with Li Shun's previous one, to eliminate the demon sect's power. His purpose in finding Li Shun was to learn from his experience. But how could Li Shun let his husband be harmed again? He immediately rejected Wei Jingyi. Just wait until I win Qing'er's heart and handle it then. No need to launch a full-scale attack. Hearing the name Qing'er, Wei Jingyi was puzzled. This Qing'er you mention couldn't be the current demon sect leader Lang Shaoqing? Li Shun got excited at hearing his husband's name, reflexively making heart shapes with his hands. That's right. This confused Wei Jingyi. After understanding the whole story, he was even more shocked. You led the imperial court to destroy the old sect leader, and now you want to seduce his son? Li Shun nodded proudly, looking quite pleased with himself. Just as he was waiting for Wei Jingyi's praise, Wei Jingyi said something shocking. You're such a scoundrel, but as a devoted follower, Lord Li seemed to like this description. At this point, Li Shun suddenly lowered his eyes. I have never betrayed him. Wei Jingyi didn't understand. Wasn't your mission to eliminate the demon sect? Li Shun looked helpless. The conditions for my return to reality weren't that simple. My mission was to kill Lang Shaoqing. Meanwhile, at the Jiuyo sect, someone rushed in urgently, hurriedly reporting to the sect leader that Li person seems to have disappeared. Lang Shaoqing pushed open the door. Seeing the empty room, he instantly gritted his teeth in anger, then rushed outside recklessly to search for the escaped Li Shun. As he passed through a grove, his powerful skills allowed him to hear Li Shun's voice. Coincidentally, he heard the words, I must kill Lang Shaoqing. This man, out late at night searching for his runaway lover, happened to hear his spouse speaking ill of him behind his back. The fleeing Li Shun, hiding in the woods chatting with his fellow time traveler, revealed his true purpose. It was to kill Lang Shaoqing. However, these words were overheard by the arriving Lang Shaoqing. He wanted to rush out immediately and ask Li Shun how much of his love was real, which words were true and which were false. Yet, clinging to a glimmer of hope, he chose not to reveal himself. Instead, he concealed his presence and hid behind a rock to eavesdrop on their conversation. Li Shun scratched his head in frustration. The situation back then was too complicated. I transmigrated into the body of the most neglected, illegitimate son in the general's mansion. To complete the system's mission quickly, I fell back on my previous life's profession. I volunteered to be an undercover agent in the demon sect. Lang Shaoqing, hidden behind, couldn't understand what previous life meant or what this system was. Deep in the mountains, the night was cold and dark. Li Shun and Wei Jingyi lit a bonfire and continued talking about the past. At first, Li Shun indeed approached with the intention of quickly killing Lang Shaoqing so he could return home. But he gradually realized that Lang Shaoqing was also a victim. The system determined Lang Shaoqing would cause disaster in the future, so he had to be killed before things became irreversible. Li Shun understood that victims often become perpetrators, but he always believed that before reaching that point, Lang Shaoqing was just an innocent child. Of course, sometimes he would think, if he could have been heartless enough, he might already be back in modern times, drinking beer and watching sports at a barbecue stall. Wei Jingyi raised another doubt. Since you sacrificed your chance to return home for the sect leader, then surely there must have been a misunderstanding about the demon sect's destruction back then. Why didn't you explain it clearly? You don't seem like the type to keep quiet. Li Shun shook his head and sighed. Because the truth was too cruel. So cruel it would drive him insane, turning him into an inhuman killing monster. The Joyo sect's evil technique was a powerful martial art with terrifying destructive power and irreversible side effects. Anyone who practiced this technique would become increasingly insane as their skills improved, eventually losing their mind and dying miserably. Even the famous old sect leader of Joyo sect was no exception. But to achieve immortality, he made his adopted son, Lang Xiaoqin, practice this technique too. However, it was all part of a long-planned conspiracy. On the surface, the old sect leader was passing his will and the sect to Lang Xiaoqin. In reality, he planned to possess his young, healthy body. The medicine Lang Xiaoqin had been drinking wasn't to suppress his qi, but a slow-acting poison to weaken his will. This man, who came out at night looking for his lover, heard an earth-shattering secret. He finally learned that he had been living in a massive lie. Everyone close to him had been deceiving him. Even his adoptive father, who had loved him since childhood, was only using him just to obtain his young, healthy body. Just as the cunning old sect leader was confidently executing his scheme, a loud bang interrupted their plot. At that moment, a figure stepped in through the light. Li Shen burst in with his followers, looking gallant and righteous. The sudden imposing entrance scared the old sect leader's face pale. "Aren't you Lang Xiaoqin's lover? Why are you here?" Li Shen coldly snorted. "Let's say I was just passing by." The old sect leader noticed the light around Li Shen and became furious, his face contorting with rage. He lowered his head in silence for a moment. Then, as if suddenly realizing something, he threw his head back and laughed. So even his beloved one was deceiving him. He might as well die quickly. His life is nothing but a joke. Upon hearing this, Li Shen looked at this undying creature, wanting nothing more than to kill him immediately, to tear him into pieces. At this point in the story, Li Shen sighed helplessly. According to the system's information, if he hadn't transmigrated, the outcome would have been that Lang Xiaoqin, at the final moment of the old sect leader's possession attempt, would learn the truth. He would suddenly go mad and regain control of his body. Due to his shattered mental state, unable to accept living in lies and betrayal, Lang Xiaoqin would completely lose himself to darkness. Wei Jingyi finally understood. "So that's why you couldn't tell him the truth." Li Shen looked up and sighed deeply. "Yes, if I had explained all this when he was on the brink of madness, you wouldn't be seeing me now. A lover's betrayal is painful, but it's better than being abandoned by everyone." Lang Xiaoqin, now knowing the whole truth, trembled in the corner. Wei Jingyi felt sorry for Li Shen. "Senior, you're too pitiful. You did everything for him." But Li Shen interrupted him. With gentle yet determined eyes, he said, "How could it be just for him? After going undercover and finding evidence, removing such evil was my duty." The old sect leader used evil techniques to extort money and kill innocents. After warnings, he not only ignored them, but tried to kill us first. So I thrust the crossbow bolt into his chest, without any hesitation. Thinking about this, Li Shen felt guilty and lowered his eyes. "I might have been a good police officer, but definitely not a good lover." Wei Jingyi wanted to comfort him, but suddenly, their conversation was interrupted by a noise nearby. In the next moment, Li Shen's eyes showed a sharp glint. Could someone be watching? These two men kissing in the grove late at night. Just as Li Shen and his contemporary friend were revealing their true feelings, the nearby noise startled both of them. Wei Jingyi stood up to investigate, but Li Shen's sixth sense seemed to already know who it was, because in such a quiet place, those who could hide their presence were few. Sure enough, both were shocked to see Lang Xiaoqin hiding in the corner. Lang Xiaoqin was helplessly crouching on the ground, his whole body trembling, seemingly trying to suppress something. Seeing his husband in this state, Li Shen felt a surge of heartache. He immediately went forward to support his shaking husband. "What's wrong? Are you all right? How much did you hear?" Though his words seemed angry, his heart ached deeply. He had returned intending to explain everything gradually, but now it was too sudden. Lang Xiaoqin certainly couldn't accept it all at once. Feeling his husband's strength increasing and seeing his reddening eyes, Li Shen suddenly remembered something. He couldn't tell if his husband's state was ordinary madness or, as the system predicted, the descent into darkness after learning the truth. Helplessly, Li Shen held his husband's shoulders, trying to contain his emotions. To help him regain his senses, he shouted, "Xiaoqin, you can curse me or hit me, just don't bottle up your emotions." But unexpectedly, Lang Xiaoqin, despite his pain, managed to force out 14 words. Li Shen anxiously responded, "I'm here." The next moment, he noticed his husband was biting his tongue hard, struggling to maintain sanity. Lang Xiaoqin was now sweating profusely, as if he could barely hold on. He looked up at Li Shun, gripping his arm to maintain his last bit of consciousness. He said, "Quick, run away." Faced with this familiar dialogue and scene, Li Shun froze. It was just like this. Even when deeply betrayed, even using pain to stay conscious, he still instinctively wanted to protect. The doctor looked lovingly at his husband, cupping his face with both hands, slowly leaning in. "Don't be afraid. You've done well enough. Just like I taught you before, try to calm down." The next moment, he gently kissed him. The man fiercely pinned his spouse to the ground, as if desperately trying to take something. The doctor, trying to soothe his emotionally unstable husband, wanted to use kisses to restore his sanity. Then he bit his own tongue, letting his husband draw in his breath. "Hey, you two, have you considered how the third wheel feels?" Watching his husband's rage and anger-reddened eyes gradually fade, Li Shun thought it was working. Just as he finally breathed a sigh of relief, unexpectedly, Lang Xiaoqin's eyes suddenly grew redder, and his strength multiplied several times. He grabbed Li Shun's shoulders, and in unbearable pain, let out a heart-wrenching roar. Anger rushed to his head, seeming like he might lose control of his murderous impulses. But no matter how painful it was, he still tried to hold back, because he didn't want to hurt the person he once loved most. At the moment when reason and rage were at their limit, he hugged Li Shun and fell forward, tears falling along with the creaking sound of bone joints grinding. The creaking sounds continued. Li Shun could no longer bear his husband's weight, feeling like a mountain was crushing him, about to be flattened. Lang Xiaoqin's bones were still making creaking sounds, but what happened next was even more shocking. Lang Xiaoqin's handsome, dignified face gradually became childishly cute. His knuckled fingers became small and delicate. Looking at the unconscious, childlike appearance before him, he swallowed in disbelief. With an excited heart and trembling hands, unable to accept reality, he wanted to touch and verify if everything before him was real. Of course, Wei Jun was equally incredulous at this scene. Looking at the miniature version of Lang Xiaoqin, both showed bewildered expressions. Li Shun gently took his husband's childish hand, marveling at how small and soft it was, and that it was real, not a dream. Then he supported his husband's body, examining him up and down. His breathing had steadied and his color improved. But Li Shun grew anxious when his husband didn't wake up. "Qiner, how are you? Are you feeling unwell?" Just then, Lang Xiaoqin's fingers twitched slightly. Now this was something. The doctor and his companion were stunned again. What's going on? His boyfriend had shrunk into a child. If he hadn't experienced it himself, Li Shun wouldn't have believed it. Looking at Lang Xiaoqin's childish face before him, Li Shun cupped his face with both hands and gently shook him, trying to wake him up. Worry and anxiety were written all over his face. The next moment, Lang Xiaoqin slowly opened his eyes. When he fully awoke, his jewel-like purple eyes had lost their previous sharpness, revealing a childlike innocence. However, his small head was full of questions. He pointed at the familiar yet strange person before him and uncertainly asked, "Are you Li Si?" Unexpectedly, this childish voice instantly melted away all of his partner's sternness. He quickly nodded repeatedly like a pecking chick. "Yes, yes, yes, yes. I am Li Si." Seeing his husband safe and sound, he burst into tears. He knelt on the ground, hugging the little boy. "My dear, you scared me to death. I thought you were going to lose control and never come back." Already confused, Lang Xiaoqin heard "lose control" and understood even less. How could that be? I haven't practiced martial arts long enough. How could I lose control? Then, pointing at Li Shun, he expressed his confusion. "But Li Si, it's strange. We only spent one night apart, yet you've suddenly grown so much taller than me." As he spoke, his little hand reached up to measure Li Shun's height. However, Li Shun was even more confused by the one-night comment. At this moment, Wei Jingyi, who had been watching all along, spoke up. "Senior, sect leader Lang, could it be that both his body and mind have shrunk? Is this the legendary shrinking plus amnesia?" Upon hearing this, they stared at the miniature boyfriend, trying to understand Wei Jingyi's words. The two just stood there, frozen like a JPG. After a while, Li Shun seemed to suddenly understand. He had an epiphany. He carefully picked up Lang Xiaoqin and, using a tone for speaking to children, asked, "Qiner, how old are you now?" Though Lang Xiaoqin didn't understand the situation, he honestly answered the question. I'm 12 years old. Then the next second, he angrily pinched Li Shun's face. Li Si, have you forgotten? Did you go out playing with girls again and mix me up with someone else? Seeing his boyfriend angry, Li Shun hurriedly tried to comfort the little one. No, no, how could I dare to cheat? I only like you, Qiner. As he spoke, he shamelessly puckered his lips, seeking a kiss of love. At this moment, the young and innocent Qiner blushed at his flirtation, raising his hand to stop Li Shun's approaching lips. How annoying! Li Si always says things that cause misunderstandings. Wei Jingyi, who was watching from the side, finally couldn't take it anymore and stopped their lovey-dovey behavior. Senior, wait a minute. Aren't you finding it strange that sect leader Lang has become like this? How can you act so unconcerned? Reminded by Wei Jingyi, Li Shun finally came to his senses. He slapped his forehead as if suddenly awakening. Sorry, the joy of having a cute boy overwhelmed any concerns about demons or spirits. However, Wei Jingyi, seeing through everything, mercilessly exposed him. Officer Li, you're being a pervert. Meanwhile, little Qiner maintained a shy, girlish demeanor, covering his blushing face, still immersed in the joy of Li Shun's earlier confession. What would it feel like if your boyfriend turned into a child overnight? Well, coincidentally, our Greatly experienced just that. And even so, by the looks of it, the Greatly seemed completely enchanted, while Li Shun was indulging in the cute and adorable little Qiner. At that moment, Wei Jingyi suddenly interrupted his romantic thoughts. Only then did he remember there were urgent matters to attend to. He turned his little boyfriend's body and carefully asked Qiner if he felt any pain or discomfort anywhere. At this moment, although little Qiner didn't understand why Li Si was acting this way, he still answered the question seriously. No, everything's normal. Hearing this, the doctor couldn't understand why Lang Xiaoqin had such mysterious symptoms. Although he could shrink his bones, what would be the point of doing this in such a frenzied state? Thinking about this, he was still worried. After carefully examining little Qiner's body again, he wondered if hearing the truth had shocked him into becoming small. Unexpectedly, little Qiner showed a pitiful and very guilty expression. He thought Li Si was so panicked because he had gone crazy and hurt someone again. But how could his protective partner Li Shen bear to see his husband so wronged? He shook his head like a rattled drum, saying, No, you're fine. It's all my nonsense. Don't mind it, he said while hugging Qiner to comfort him. Then he fiercely told Wei Jingyi, although we don't know what's happening right now, don't upset him anymore. Well, I didn't expect our Greatly to have two faces, but this protective side is quite handsome. Meanwhile, Wei Jingyi looked completely confused, caught in the crossfire innocently. Is it my fault? But Li Shun completely ignored him. Hearing little Qiner sneeze, he quickly helped wrap his clothes tighter with a smile. Then he picked up little Qiner and ran back. Are you cold, Qiner? Let's go back to the room and sleep right away, leaving Wei Jingyi howling behind. Senior, your differential treatment is too obvious. Earlier it was the husband going out to find the escaped Xiao Shi. Now it's the wife carrying her husband away. This damned possessiveness, perhaps only our Greatly could handle it. After Li Shun brought little Qiner back to the demon sect, everyone was surprised to see such a small child. Only Huai Yin, who had captured the hearts of beautiful ladies, immediately felt maternal love overflow at seeing such a cute child. Whose child is this? So adorable and cute. At this moment, the green-haired guard was the first to break the awkwardness. Boss, we've been playing mahjong for years. How come you and the demon sect leader already have a child? I haven't even had the chance to give a red envelope. Goodness, these words made Li Shun's heart bloom with joy, but he held back his wild happiness. Too bad he's not mine by birth. Upon hearing this, everyone felt as if lightning had struck their hearts. Could it be the demon sect leader's child? Did we ship the wrong CP? Wei Jingyi, standing aside, couldn't bear to watch anymore. With an embarrassed face, he helplessly indicated not to dwell on the child matter. Then he kept complaining internally. Is there no normal person in this room? Who would have thought my role would be the voice of reason? Then he waved his hand, steeled himself, and formally stated the truth. Stop guessing, everyone. The demon sect leader had an accident with his evil technique. That's why he turned into a child. At this moment, the Mahjong quartet seemed to receive another shocking revelation. Everyone started discussing while looking at the confused little Chiner. What if he can never change back? What will happen to the demon sect? Who will take care of him? At this time, the demon sect leader's guard looked fiercely at little Chiner, refusing to believe this was real. You, a government dog official, and you, the Martial Alliance leader's son, aren't you just working together to deceive me? But this appearance terrified our little Chiner, who immediately hid behind Li Shun and became too scared to speak. Seeing his little boyfriend frightened, Li Shun couldn't help but curse that fool in his heart. This stupid guard, being cautious at the wrong time. Then while crouching down to comfort his husband, he seriously stated, "It's normal that you don't believe it. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I would think it impossible too." Then his lips curved into a mischievous smile, as if plotting something wicked. Then in the next moment, while holding little Chiner, his face bloomed into a smile. "Since you won't acknowledge him as the sect leader, then I suppose I can just take him away with me." This sudden change in attitude was so quick that everyone was momentarily stunned. Before anyone could react, Li Shun seized the opportunity to pick up little Chiner and run towards the exit. "Let's go, men. We're heading back to Jinzhong." This man was ready to elope with his husband. When it comes to chasing after his husband, Lord Li was absolutely unrivaled. Taking advantage of everyone's distraction to carry his husband away, that's exactly what Li Shun would do. Seeing this situation, the guard was startled and immediately tried to stop them. During the escape attempt, although uncertain whether the child was really the wolf sect leader, they couldn't let him leave so easily. Unsure what to do, he turned to Huayin for guidance. "This is too strange. Huayin, do you think that child is really the wolf sect leader?" But the famous Dr. Huayin had never seen such a phenomenon either. Stroking his chin, he said with both helplessness and shock, "This child, although his inner energy and bone structure are very similar to the wolf sect leaders, I've never seen reverse aging before." Genuinely curious, the next second, Chu Guard took out the master's wedding clothes. "Until the real sect leader appears, you should stay here for now." Unable to elope, Li Shun disappointedly took little Chiner back to the room. Holding little Chiner, he sighed helplessly, "They still don't trust us. They've even relegated us to the guest room." Then he pinched little Chiner's chubby cheeks. "When the little sect leader regains his memories, I'll have to punish him properly." However, at this moment, little Chiner looked dejected and unhappy. "Li Si, this feels very unreal." Startled by his little boyfriend's sudden melancholy, Li Shun quickly withdrew his hand. It turned out little Chiner had heard everyone's discussion and understood what had happened. He knew that due to his evil technique going awry, both his body and memories had returned to 13 years ago. Li Shun hadn't expected little Chiner to be so clever. To prevent him from feeling sad and guilty, he quickly reassured him, "Young master, don't worry. Li Si will definitely find a way to restore you." But in reality, what he was thinking was, "If you don't return to your adult form, how can I pursue you?" At this time, little Chiner suddenly became interested and asked about his future. "Did I fulfill my adoptive father's wishes? Did I become a qualified sect leader?" However, when Li Shun heard the old sect leader's name, he suddenly froze. But he still comfortingly patted his little boyfriend's head and said gently, "Chiner is amazing. Even with your foundation destroyed and facing betrayal, you still worked hard to fulfill your promise to your adoptive father and revive the Joyo sect." Li Si thinks Chiner is an especially qualified sect leader. As he spoke, he hugged little Chiner. Being praised made little Chiner feel somewhat embarrassed. His face turned red. "That's good. I've always been causing trouble for everyone, so I worry that even when I grow up, I won't be able to repay their kindness." Hearing this, Li Shun's heart stirred inexplicably. He hadn't expected that even with memory loss, Chiner was still thinking about how to repay his benefactors. He didn't know how to explain everything to him. If he told him about his betrayal, would little Chiner still trust him unconditionally like now? What does it feel like to share a bed with your dream lover? Lord Li, lying in the same bed with his little boyfriend, felt absolutely elated. Speaking of the old sect leader, Li Shun looked at the innocent child before him, and his heart stirred with an inexplicable ripple. Such a kind and sensible child. He couldn't bear to cover up the truth with more lies. So he quickly changed the subject. "Does young master think Li Si has helped you before?" Little Chiner happily lay down on the bed and replied, "Of course. Before meeting you, Chiner was very lonely every day. They were all afraid of me, saying I was a murderous lunatic. Only Li Si was willing to play with me. You drove away all those who gossiped about me, always protecting me, and telling me not to mind those things. Thinking of this, little Cheener's eyes unconsciously narrowed into happy crescents. Even after 13 years, Li Si is still by my side. Hearing this while tucking in his little boyfriend, Li Shun's heart suddenly trembled, because he knew in his heart that he hadn't always stayed by his side, and had even betrayed him later. He didn't know if little Cheener would still trust him unconditionally after learning the truth. Thinking of this, he became distressed. The next second, he buried his face in the pillow. It seemed Wei Jingyi was right. Whenever it came to matters concerning Lang Xiaoqin, he always hesitated. He blamed himself for being an adult, yet having less courage than a child. It wasn't right. However, little Cheener had no idea what he was thinking. After all this activity, for his current small body, it was a bit too much. Little Cheener looked drowsy, yawned, and appeared very tired. Li Si, I'm sleepy. Let's go to bed. That childish voice immediately melted Li Shan's heart. After a moment of silence, he suddenly turned around with a mischievous smile. All right, let me help you change clothes. But when little Cheener saw his expression, he felt inexplicably scared. He immediately sat up and refused. No need. I'll do it myself. But Li Shun persisted. It's fine. Don't be shy. It's not like we haven't done this before. The next second, he shamelessly reached out, talking to himself. These clothes don't fit now. I wonder if we can find your childhood clothes. Little Cheener clutched his small hands dejectedly. We should find a way to restore my body quickly. Seeing his little boyfriend unhappy, Li Shin immediately dropped his playful demeanor and asked with concern, why suddenly bring this up? Is Cheener eager to change back? But little Cheener shook his head in denial. The current me always hurts you. I can't control my madness and have to drink your blood. I'm definitely not as likable as my 13 years later self. Li Shun looked at little Cheener's big watery eyes, but had different thoughts in his heart. Having such an adorable little Cheener made his heart melt. He still missed the young wolf's soft, gentle, and endearing nature. He was so much more well-behaved than his adult self. The two lay in bed, cuddling together, sharing their heart's words. Compared to the later cold and ruthless wolf sect leader, Li Shun preferred the current soft and cute little Cheener. While undressing, he comforted, actually, in Li Si's eyes, the current Cheener is no less than your grown-up self. However, little Cheener sighed, not believing Li Shan's words. Liar, how could that be possible? At this moment, Li Shan gently covered little Cheener with the blanket. Why not? You've probably saved me countless times already. Actually, before transmigrating, Li Shun's parents in the modern world were both police officers. But when Li Shun was very young, his parents were killed by criminals while investigating illegal drugs. After growing up, Li Shun joined the anti-drug unit to inherit his parents' legacy. With his quick reflexes and reckless methods, he went undercover in criminal gangs and solved many major cases. Everyone said he was just like his parents, born to be a police officer. But no one knew that Officer Li, who could risk his life to save others from danger, simply didn't know how to live on. During one mission, Li Shun was severely injured. Near death, he transmigrated here. Only by completing the system's tasks could he have a chance to wake up. When Li Shun first met Lang Xiaoqin, seeing his cute and lively face, he thought he looked like a little puppy. He couldn't believe what the system said about this face destroying a country in the future. Li Shun hugged little Cheener and told him about his life in modern times. Though I seemed normal, I was always living in a daze. I'd go on missions when assigned, clock in and out of work when not, drink and eat skewers after work. There was no real feeling of being alive. I even thought that becoming a police officer wasn't about avenging my parents, but rather hoping someone would give me orders, give me a goal to keep moving forward. However, little Cheener couldn't understand these words. He looked up at Li Si confused. I don't quite understand. Li Shin gazed at his little boyfriend lovingly. It's okay if you don't understand. You just need to know that what Li Si wants, only you can give me. Saying this, he lay down holding his little boyfriend. Li Shun recalled 13 years ago. Once, he was severely injured by the wolf young master, who went berserk from drinking medicine. He didn't tell anyone and had no medicine. Little did anyone know he had thoughts of ending his life then. When he was at death's door, he faintly heard the wolf young master's anxious calls. He struggled to open his eyes, hardly believing it. He weakly uttered, Young Master Qin, why are you here? The wolf young master took out a bottle of medicine, anxious yet slightly reproachful. If I hadn't come, you would have died. Yesterday when I went berserk, I hurt you badly, but when I found the medicine, You were gone. Li Si, why didn't you say anything when you were so badly hurt? At that time, Li Shan didn't understand why the wolf young master cared so much about him. So he tremblingly asked, Young master, why are you so kind to this humble servant? I'm just a replaceable medicine deliverer. But unexpectedly, the wolf sect leader who was applying medicine suddenly got angry. You can't be replaced. Only Li Si can do this. Not hating me, not running away, and not getting killed. Always delivering medicine to me. Only you. You are my only one. Here he comes. The sect leader everyone's been waiting for finally appears before us today. Without further ado, let's get to the point. Last episode showed the miniaturized Lang Xiaoqin and Li Shan sharing a bed, sharing their heart's words, remembering events from 13 years ago. Young Lang Xiaoqin not only bandaged the wounded Li Shan, but also made a heartfelt confession. At that time, Li Shan nearly lost his life trying to infiltrate the devil sect as an undercover agent. Indeed, to create the image of a refugee fleeing into the devil sect, the great undercover agent gave the performance of his lifetime. His throat was so sore. As expected, this operation directly touched little Cheener's heart. The pure and kind little one said, If it hurts to talk, then don't speak. This blanket is too thin. You'll catch a cold in this weather. You haven't eaten all day, have you? I'll go get you something to eat. But just as he was about to leave, Di Sheng stopped him. Feverish and dizzy, he couldn't eat anything. He just wanted to lie down and sleep, so he lied about having eaten already. But the next second proved him wrong. Unexpectedly, his traitorous stomach growled loudly. The volume of the sound and the awkwardness of the situation would probably haunt Lord Li forever. Without another word, the wolf young master ran outside. His dashing figure flashed past, leaving only the words, Wait for me. Left alone in the room, Li Shang sighed helplessly. If this pampered young master brings me something completely inedible, what should I do? For the undercover mission, I'll still have to pretend to like it. However, this seemed to be the first time since falling ill that someone was taking care of him. Feeling the warmth, Lord Li's heart was instantly filled with a warm sensation. Contentedly, he recalled that in modern times, his parents were always away during his childhood, rarely coming home. Back then, he had wished his parents could spend more time with him. But his constant longing only led to such an ending. As he grew up, even his body seemed to understand that he had lost the luxury of being willful and gradually stopped getting sick. Plus, due to work, he couldn't even get a girlfriend. He had no one to rely on, and no one would rely on him. Thinking of this, he shook his head in frustration. He blamed himself for being so emotionally fragile and reminded himself to put aside anything that might compromise his undercover mission. Just then, the room door opened again. The wolf young master entered carrying a steaming bowl of soup. As he walked in, Lord Li was immediately drawn to the aroma. Having a boyfriend who can cook is so fortunate. Just a moment ago, Li Shang was wondering if the wolf young master's cooking would be edible. The next second, he was completely won over. Smelling the fragrant soup the wolf young master brought, Lord Li forgot about his fever and immediately sat up. Young master, did you specially ask the cook to make this for your servant? He thought to himself, waking someone up in the middle of the night, as expected of a young master's way. But the wolf young master's next words completely changed his perspective. I sneaked into the kitchen and made this myself? Li Sheng asked in disbelief. You really know how to cook? At that moment, his stomach growled again. The wolf young master carefully fed him the soup. Of course I can. Before my adoptive father took me in, I did all this at home. After tasting it, Di Sheng looked amazed. This is so delicious. But he didn't understand why Lang Xiaoqin would be required to do these things at home. Ancient men rarely cooked, especially at such a young age. Hearing this, Lang Xiaoqin suddenly paused, lowering his eyes sadly. Because my parents didn't like me. They said my hair was an omen of misfortune. Di Shang was shocked at first upon hearing this, but thinking about it, he wasn't surprised. After all, this albinism was hard to accept in many undeveloped places in the past, often being seen as demonic and inauspicious. Those who are hateful must have their pitiful sides. Saying this, he reached out to touch a strand of the young master's hair, sincerely praising him. Your white hair is very beautiful. Lang Xiaoqin couldn't believe it was the first time someone had complimented his hair. But the next second, he stuffed food into Li's mouth as if venting. Save those words for the young ladies when you get better. Then he gently stirred the soup in the bowl and tentatively said, If you really don't mind, why don't you move to my courtyard and live with me? Be my personal attendant. I can't go on without you. Never imagining he would be needed this much, he instantly blushed with shyness. Though relying on others isn't bad, being desperately needed by someone is the most touching feeling. He leaned closer to Lang Xiaoqing's face and said gently, "If this is Xiao Zhongning's request, then I accept." Author's note about updates and permissions follows. What does it feel like to be desperately needed? Others might not know, but our Lord Li was certainly enjoying it immensely. Influenced by his family environment since childhood, he had always wanted to be completely trusted and relied upon. That's why he chose a job where he could protect others freely. This somewhat satisfied his small heart that needed recognition. But unfortunately, he didn't realize then that sometimes protection doesn't just mean helping. Sometimes it even means killing. Speaking of this, Li was full of worry. He longed to be relied upon, but had never truly been depended on in his life. Seeing Li so sad, Qing'er quickly comforted him, saying, "Qing'er will rely on you. I won't let you be so sad." Then he reached out and touched Li Shun's cheeks. "If you want my dependence, then I can depend on you." Li Shun was deeply moved by these words. He lovingly touched Qing'er's forehead and held him tight. "Qing'er and I are truly meant for each other, so it's settled then. Even if you can't change back, I won't let go." Qing'er leaned into Li Shun's embrace, suddenly feeling possessive. He thoroughly enjoyed this feeling of being relied upon, and this feeling could only belong to him. No one else could take it away. The next morning arrived in the blink of an eye. Li Shun was awakened by the glaring sunlight. He slowly opened his eyes, but unexpectedly, he saw Qing'er in his adult form. Startled as if seeing a ghost, he almost flipped the wolf over. The next second, he couldn't control himself. He reached out wanting to touch his husband, but then he thought, no, he shouldn't be impulsive. If the morally upright wolf Xiaoqing saw them in this state of undress, embracing the person he hated most, the damage would be beyond repair with just respect. He had to find a way to escape before he woke up. With that thought, he tried to push away the tightly embracing Lang Xiaoqing. But not only did Lang Xiaoqing not let go, he held on even tighter. Lord Li certainly wouldn't give up easily. He could be seen encouraging himself while pushing harder, all while complaining about his husband's sleepiness. After a moment, Lang Xiaoqing's hands finally loosened. Just as he was celebrating ecstatically, the next second, Lang Xiaoqing's hand covered his face again and nuzzled against his belly while hugging him. Then after a soft murmur, he opened his eyes. Li Shun felt utterly hopeless. It's over. It's all over. Just as he was lamenting how life plays such cruel jokes, he heard a familiar voice. Lang Xiaoqing was arranging his hair while yawning, complaining, "Why didn't you wake me up?" Then he noticed his long hair and suddenly enlarged hands. "Why have my hands grown bigger?" Li Shun was shocked upon hearing this. "Are you still mentally 12 years old?" His husband had just transformed from child to adult form and was about to do unspeakable things with him. How could the doctor handle this? Lang Xiaoqing looked at his suddenly grown body and long hair, completely confused. The doctor immediately understood. His body had recovered, but his mind hadn't. "Well, let's get dressed first." While Li Shun was helping his husband arrange his hair, the young wolf master kicked his feet like a child, boasting, "So this is how tall I'll grow." Then he turned around playfully measuring against Li Shun's head. "I'm even taller than you." However, as Li Shun looked at the cheerful, handsome man before him, he was startled by memories and his mind wandered to some inappropriate thoughts. When he came to his senses, he shook his head shamefully. No. Even if Lang Jun is cute now, I can't take advantage of him." He continued helping his husband tie his hair. After the grooming was complete, Li Shun looked at his radiantly handsome husband and couldn't help but call him an angel. While combing his hair and admiring his husband's handsomeness, he suddenly felt that staying like this wouldn't be so bad. They could make up for all the past unpleasantness. My, Lord Li's little scheme was quite clever. Just then, the young wolf master suddenly wanted to braid Li's hair too. But when their fingers accidentally touched, Lord Li suddenly felt flustered, blushing like an inexperienced youth. Just as Lord Li was despising himself, the young wolf master's fingers accidentally touched the back of his neck. He instantly felt like electricity ran through his body, trembling all over. Unable to bear such teasing, Li Shun quickly said, "Just tie it simply." But the innocent wolf master couldn't understand Li's burning desire. The next second, he instinctively leaned forward and sniffed. "I wanted to say yesterday, you smell really nice." While he was being so unrestrained, Li Shun could only suppress his desires. "Stay calm. Just pretend it's a cat being affectionate." But just as Li Shun had barely convinced himself with this lie, the young wolf master suddenly acted strange. His eyes turned red, his face flushed, and he said with difficulty, "Something's wrong with my body. I feel so uncomfortable." Li Shun was troubled, but suddenly realized something and thought, "Don't tell me." He quickly turned his head and composed himself. "You're still mentally young. I won't make any mistakes." But the young wolf master's eyes grew increasingly red. His breathing became increasingly rapid. Li Shun finally noticed something was wrong. He hurriedly went forward to check. However, the frenzied Lang Xiaoqing suddenly pounced and knocked him to the ground. Powerless to resist, Lang Xiaoqing uncontrollably bit Li Shun's neck. The sudden pain was almost unbearable for Li Shun. To prevent Lang Xiaoqing from hurting himself, he put his fingers in his husband's mouth. But seeing his husband so distressed and burning with desire, his heart softened at the sight of such desperate thirst. He helplessly complained, "This is so annoying," then let go and indulgently guided him to his shoulder. "Don't bite the neck. It's dangerous. Bite the shoulder instead." The man's body had just recovered, and now he wanted to be intimate with his wife. Unfortunately, his wife couldn't handle it. Li Shun could only let the frenzied Lang Xiaoqing press against his shoulder. Listening to his husband's gulping sounds while drinking blood, his consciousness gradually became fuzzy. Could he endure giving blood again after such a short time? But watching his husband seemingly trying hard to suppress his inner impulses and not causing much harm, even so, if this continued, he would become completely drained. He grabbed his husband's hair, trying to push him away, only to find his arms had lost too much blood. No strength left. To save his life, he had to call for help outside. "Is anyone there? Help! Someone's going to die." Hearing their boss's cries, 3 subordinates rushed in to check the situation. But upon entering, they saw such an eye-burning scene. They immediately slammed the door shut and fled, leaving only the words, "We apologize for the intrusion." Li Shun instantly gritted his teeth in anger. "If you don't come back, your boss is going to die." Hearing this, the subordinates carefully pushed the door open again. By now, Li Shun was barely breathing. "Quickly pull him away. He's having an episode." Everyone finally realized they weren't just playing around, so they hurriedly came forward to stop him. However, looking at the situation, it didn't seem easy to control. Li Shun helplessly touched his forehead. It was really troublesome. It seemed that as Lang Xiaoqing's body recovered, his powers also returned. He stroked his husband's cheek and pulled him into his arms. "Be good, ignore them. Keep drinking." This action completely bewildered the subordinates. The next second, their boss gave them a meaningful look. "What are you standing there for? Come help." Having followed their boss for so long, they had this much awareness. But when they reached out, Lang Xiaoqing lifted his head and bared his teeth at them threateningly. After they withdrew their hands, he returned to quietly drinking as if nothing happened. Each time they tried to reach out, they were met with threats. He was just like a cat protecting its food. The doctor and his companions were stunned. He let out a meaningless sigh toward the sky. "No choice. If the gentle approach doesn't work, we'll have to use force. I've seen people protect their wives before, but I've never seen someone bully their wife like this." He's about to drain his wife completely, unable to handle his husband, but wanting to save his own life. The doctor had no choice but to be forceful. He wrapped his arms around his husband's head, controlling his upper body. His legs wrapped around his waist, controlling his lower body. Then signaled to his subordinates, "While I hold him, quickly move." The subordinates understood, and like giving a shot to a kitten, they finally subdued him. However, Lang Xiaoqing in his arms didn't know what happened, only feeling his body go limp. Though without strength, he still trusted the doctor completely, even gently nuzzling against his chest. Now, he was truly like an obedient little kitten. Moments later, Chu Shiwei, hearing the news, arrived with Dr. Huai. They saw Li Shun holding red bean porridge, attending to their sect leader. After understanding the situation, they were puzzled. How could the sect leader have another episode after such a short time? Dr. Huai was checking the sect leader's pulse, which remained dangerously unstable. The doctor was also very worried. He only knew that his husband's body had shrunk after experiencing severe shock. The shrinking alone was miraculous without completely losing control, but it was unclear why he went mad while recovering. Dr. Bai immediately became alert. Did you say anything to Lang that might have triggered him? Di Sheng fell into deep thought, recalling everything that happened with Lang last night. Not really. After he shrank, I just talked about myself, almost nothing related to this. Dr. Bai was confused. Based on his years of research, the side effects of the 9 Netherworld evil technique were heavily influenced by the practitioner's mental state. That's why he intentionally had Wang Shaoqing control his emotions. But recent events completely defied the pattern. He couldn't understand what was happening either. But then he had an idea. To recover memories, you could visit places you've been before and do things you used to do, then see what happens. Hearing things you used to do, Li Shen froze, then showed a shy expression. How could we do that? Speaking of what he and the sect leader used to do, those were things that couldn't be shown. CP includes sweet moments too. The majestic long-haired, beautiful evil sect leader, and the justice-filled Shaolin disciple. Now that the evil sect was starting to trust him, though it was good, having him help the mentally unstable sect leader find memories would be like sending a lamb into a tiger's den. His only impressions of the past were like this and that, and adult things like this and that. But seeing the sect leader's excited face, we must go play, must go play. Now it seemed that all those years for the mission, he had only approached him with strategic intent. Being able to make up for lost time with the sect leader was incredibly fortunate. The sect leader remained silent. After a moment of silence, he asked, "Did you kill my adoptive father?" Yu Sheng hadn't expected this question. Looking at the evil sect's situation, he could roughly guess. Yu Sheng suspected he had regained his memories, and the childish mindset was all an act. He kept asking Lin Sheng over and over, why not tell him the reason? Seeing his behavior, the doctor knew the sect leader hadn't recovered yet, but it made sense. Given his current mental age, the sect leader had only been adopted for a few years and hadn't developed deep feelings for the old sect leader. He looked up and told the sect leader he could reveal the truth, but must not despair over it. The sect leader found his words strange, but agreed nonetheless. As long as the doctor didn't leave him, he would never despair. They arrived at the cliff. The wind was bitter cold. Lin Sheng told the sect leader the truth here, about being mistaken for a slow poison, then being trained as a vessel for soul possession. These were the facts. The sect leader was speechless for a while. So after being abandoned by my birth parents, I was abandoned by my adoptive father too, he slowly said. Then he denied it himself. Perhaps father never considered me his child at all. Even so, Li Shun could see these words had greatly impacted him. So he comforted the sect leader. You did nothing wrong. The sect leader understood. Lin Sheng had once said his white hair was due to lacking certain elements in his body, not because he was a monster. That sect leader who once wanted to jump here had already been saved by him. Hearing this, Li Shun broke into a cold sweat. What to do when a drunk person keeps wanting to get close? Drunken intimacy absolutely cannot happen again. Though somewhat embarrassing, roleplay is better than going all the way. Li Shun took out his long-collected white shirt. This was specially made to commemorate his transmigration. After dressing the sect leader, he had him wear a tie and show himself. With a bit of wildness, enough to seduce him, it instantly captivated him. The sect leader truly suited the reserved look. He shyly covered his face, saying it would be better with a whip. Unexpectedly, the drunk sect leader agreed immediately. Li was already very satisfied. He patted the bed for the sect leader. Having changed into modern clothes, it was like they traveled to modern times. Not only did the sect leader like him, he also loved the sect leader. That's why he gave up the chance to return to reality, staying in this chaotic world. He cupped the sect leader's face. The sect leader suddenly went mad without warning. Suddenly pushed Ling Sheng off the bed, hiding under the bed. Because of Lei Shun's body, he couldn't feed him blood anymore. Lei Shun stood stunned beside the bed. He couldn't understand why. Not even a day had passed, yet he went mad again. The sect leader now needed his blood. Wanting to open the briefcase on the bed, the sect leader had pushed him away just to avoid hurting him. He couldn't let the sect leader's efforts go to waste. Turned around to seek help. After a short while, he returned with the divine doctor and the sect leader's subordinates. The sect leader comforted him, saying the evil sect had prepared prisoners, all traitors, ready to be sacrificed for him at any time. When the three arrived at the bed, there was complete silence inside. He was just here. He couldn't have run away. Lei Shen pulled open the curtain. The sight before them was unbelievable. The sect leader had shrunk again. Lei Shen noticed something. His current appearance was older than before. The divine doctor checked his pulse and agreed it seemed true. His muscle mass and height had increased. Then turned to ask Li Shang what happened earlier and why he suddenly had an episode. As they say, desire is human nature, especially true for men. He just liked the sect leader this way, teasing him like this. The sect leader truly suited the dark style better. But just as he confessed his feelings, the sect leader began to go mad. Probably because he hadn't been fed blood, he shrank again. The divine doctor grasped the key issue. Fine with blood, mad and shrinking without it. He seriously told Li Shang, the sect leader's condition is not optimistic. Before you appeared, his episodes were stable, but recently they've been accelerating. The evil sect's dark arts backlash is related to the practitioner's emotions, meaning that although Li Shang has good intentions, the happier the sect leader is, the more frequent the episodes become. Shuni didn't mean to force him to leave. After all, Ling Shang's presence had brought unprecedented joy to the sect leader. As the sect leader's friend, he also hoped for his happiness. Ling Shang held the shrunken sect leader, trembling slightly. He remembered telling the sect leader before, even if it meant dying mad, he wanted to be with him. He had already failed the sect leader once. He didn't want to fail him a second time. The primary task now was to find a way to restore the sect leader. As they were talking, the sect leader slowly opened his eyes. He touched his head, dazed. Seeing the sect leader awake, they first asked his current age. The sect leader looked confused. 15 years old. Lin Sheng asked, like talking to someone with dementia. Do you remember yourself? Of course the sect leader remembered. He remembered himself when he went mad earlier. The sect leader who had pushed Lin Sheng away touched his face, looking left and right, concerned if he was hurt. Lin Sheng stammered in response, thinking to himself that the 15-year-old sect leader was truly cool, and quite forward too, exactly to his liking. Li Shang grabbed the sect leader's hand. Since he knew who Li Shang was, his memories from these past few days must still be there. Sure enough, the sect leader said he had mysteriously gained some strange memories. The sect leader blamed himself, realizing he was still there. The doctor hugged him, gently comforting him. Unexpectedly, the sect leader pushed him away directly. The doctor knew clearly that the sect leader was being tsundere. He still wanted to ask the sect leader one last question, whether the southern mountain was still an ice mountain. But as a professional admirer, even an ice mountain must be melted into crushed ice. The shrunken sect leader pushed away Li Shang, who was hugging him. Seeing his tsundere and shy appearance, the doctor knew this was the stage of first love, secretly crushing on him. So cute, but he wondered if he still secretly washed his pants now. 10 years ago, as youths, they had already considered each other as bed-sharing brothers. Back then, Li Shang told the sect leader to rest early. Unexpectedly, the sect leader started making excuses. He could feel the sect leader had been acting strange lately. Usually they would sleep together. Could he have discovered he was an undercover? So Ling Shang pretended to sleep, wanting to find out what the sect leader was up to. The sect leader put down his book, looking at the sleeping Ling Shang beside him, still called his name several times to make sure. Ling Shang continued pretending to sleep without changing expression. He could sense the sect leader was testing him. If his identity was exposed, things wouldn't be good. Suddenly, the sect leader's hand touched Ling Sheng's face. What was he doing? Then the sect leader leaned down, calling his name. Ling Sheng wondered if the sect leader always did this to him while sleeping. The sect leader suddenly straightened up, afraid Li Shang would discover him if this continued. But he still wanted more contact. Finally unable to resist, a kiss should be okay, right? Then whispered in Li Shang's ear, I like you. That night, he accidentally discovered the hidden feelings in the silver-haired youth's heart. From initial confusion, he found it somewhat amusing, watching the sect leader still making excuses for washing his pants. The way he carefully showed his love was truly irresistible. Before, he was the one who liked me first. This time it's my turn to be first. The sect leader couldn't believe his ears. The sect leader's subordinates trembled upon hearing this. Shouldn't they first address the issue of the sect leader becoming smaller? But Ling Shang's wrist was suddenly grabbed. The sect leader asked him what he meant, his face full of joy. Although he had done many things he shouldn't have, he seemed to have never formally expressed it. He also had desires for the sect leader. That kind of like was also to possess him. The sect leader still couldn't believe it. Head lowered as if in a dream. When he raised his head again, his eyes had turned red. The dark dog guard forcefully restrained the sect leader. Once, knowing the other's feelings, he had kept stringing him along, never giving a response, making him think they were just friends, living daily in unfulfilled desire. Now time has reset. It's the world's way of letting him make up for the sect leader's life's regrets. If this was a reward, then he was incredibly grateful. But Li Shun never expected that a simple confession would make the sect leader go mad. The sect leader unexpectedly bit Li Shun hard, not knowing why he went mad again. There was almost no time interval from the previous madness. The divine doctor asked Li Shun to tell him everything that happened. He was of course more than willing, hoping to help. Sure enough, after drinking his blood, the sect leader would return to his normal age. Without blood, he would regress. He remembered the divine doctor saying that those who practice evil arts would be consumed by their own emotions. So cutting off emotions and desires was the best way to delay deterioration. Avoid extreme joy or sorrow. When he wasn't around, the frequency of madness was very low. So the root cause of his evil art backlash might be himself. The divine doctor agreed with his view. The reason the sect leader turned into a child was to avoid hurting him. There was one thing Li Shun didn't understand. Why did the sect leader suddenly return to normal and grow without drinking blood? The divine doctor told him this might mean the sect leader could no longer control himself accurately. His body was becoming weak. The sect leader gradually woke up. He knew he had gone mad again. Practice makes perfect. He knew although his body had recovered, he was still in despair. This time he stayed at 15 years old again. He saw the other person staring at him. He knew his subject had something to tell him. After all, Li Shun rarely looked so dejected. Don't worry, nothing will happen. I can handle it. The doctor was stunned, then made up his mind. Based on previous episodes, the evil arts backlash has likely worsened. You lose control every time I confess. So as long as you continue to like me, you'll keep having emotional fluctuations. Gradually, your body won't be able to handle it. Whenever he recalled the divine doctor's words, he couldn't help but feel sad. Will I eventually die completely if each madness episode drains my life force? Although Lin Sheng didn't want to admit it, it was indeed true. He wouldn't disappear without a word under the pretense of doing what's best for the sect leader. That would be too melodramatic. How should they choose their future? He wanted to hear the sect leader's thoughts. Two men in love, troubled by this very fact. Keep his loved one by his side, and he'll die from emotional turmoil. If they part ways, though alive, they'll likely never see each other again. So Li Shun said separation was the best choice. Otherwise, the sect leader's frequent madness would drain the demonic sect. But how could he be so heartless to abandon him? The sect leader wanted to ask him something, to choose a successor. After all, with his memory loss and current state, he truly couldn't fulfill the role of sect leader. So he wanted to choose a successor who needn't inherit his skills or practice harmful techniques. As long as they could lead everyone in the sect steadily, he would be content. What are your plans for the future? Living in seclusion? Cultivating yourself? Of course I'll be with you. Come to think of it, we've never gone out together alone. In fact, since birth, he had barely left the mountain. You can decide where we go in the future. If you keep being this foolish, I won't let go. Even if you regain your memories and try to escape, I won't let go. All right, it's a promise. Di Sheng went to find the demonic sect subordinates, asking if there were any suitable candidates. Unexpectedly, they said the matter of the next sect leader had already been decided. It was the new young Master Langley, an orphan the sect leader found while patrolling. Seeing his stable temperament, he adopted him as his son and kept him close for guidance. Li Shun reached out and touched the child's face. This made the sect leader extremely jealous. But Langley, unaware, went straight to the sect leader. Li Shun openly introduced himself as his adoptive mother. The little girl couldn't believe her adoptive mother was a man. The sect leader nodded along, somehow managing to gloss over it. After thinking for a while, Langley said disappointedly, "So that's how I got my name." Li Shun couldn't help but tease about this. He knew he shouldn't say anything that would cause the sect leader's emotions to fluctuate. The following days were relatively relaxed. Langley had a good temperament. He learned quickly, and the new demonic sect wasn't as stubborn as the old one. Rather than ambitious dreams of unifying the martial world, they wanted everyone to live well. The demonic sect members got along well with Wei Jingyi, the martial alliance leader's son. They could sign a peace treaty at any time. Was this arrangement really good for the sect leader? The man begged his lover to kill him because of his periodic madness. Fearing he might hurt him, he had no choice. He also wanted to leave the demonic sect, the place he'd lived since childhood. The comrades who sought refuge here weren't extremists living for hatred and great evil. They were either alone or desperate people who once couldn't even afford food. They were long accustomed to life and death. When they learned of his illness, they had already made preparations. However, they hadn't expected everyone to respect his choice so easily. If he knew that Di Sheng had fought several times with the demonic sect subordinates to negotiate this, he wouldn't think this way. If I really don't go, you'll be very sad, won't you? Hey, don't say such gloomy things. We can be together for a very long time. Although they could be together for a long time, to avoid adding to the sect leader's mental burden, even though they were in love, they couldn't do what they wanted to do. Don't you want to do it? Of course I do. I want it so badly. But thinking about how it would affect the sect leader's emotions, the desire lessened. After all, health was more important. He really liked the young one, but simply didn't want to stimulate him anymore. I'm fine. I can control myself. Just thinking about doing it. Because it's you, I don't know why I would completely lose my mind. Unable to remember anything, I want to take advantage while I'm clear-headed. These few short sentences made him feel understood. So he openly said they could play around a little. Based on his previous experience, it was always saying bad things that triggered the madness. So this time, if he just didn't speak or move, perhaps the sect leader would be fine. The sect leader's face instantly turned red. This meant he could do anything he wanted. When feeling too excited or about to lose control of emotions, just stop. Otherwise, he might get hurt. Li Shin warned him not to go all the way, as that would definitely be too exciting. He knew all this. Now he just needed to watch him. The sect leader reached for the place he'd been longing for. He undid Li Shun's clothes, although he was the one who proposed not to talk. But looking at it this way, it seemed too much like some kind of game. The silence was most frightening. The sect leader was indeed a sadist. Even when gentle, he was a control freak at heart. To think he would like men, the satisfaction of having him in his control. This was called satisfaction, the desire for control. Well, in this situation, if things got too heated, they'd probably go all the way. He could only endure it. Just don't move this body around. With a slap, the sect leader suddenly spanked him hard. The feeling was too good. He couldn't help himself. Li Shun, being a pervert himself, felt this was perverted. It felt more tiring than doing everything, even though they did nothing. He felt this should be enough, but unexpectedly, the sect leader had gotten addicted to playing. Li Shun could only beg for mercy. Humph, I'll spare you, but you must agree to our previous agreement, to kill me with your own hands someday in the future. How could Lin Shin agree? How could he bear to do it? How obsessed must one be to want to be killed by him? You don't agree? Lin Shin shook his head, refusing till death. Is that so? Then don't blame me for being rough. The sect leader began another wave of attacks. This natural-born sadist. He indicated that even if he agreed now, he might not fulfill it in the future. Coercion was useless. But if you promise, you will definitely do it. Although Dr. Li is unorthodox and likes to deceive people, he has never broken a promise. Lying on the bed with no movement for a while, he was relieved thinking it was finally over. But unexpectedly, the sect leader's devilish hands reached out again. Finally, he had to agree. When asked about the reason, the sect leader said he wanted Lin Sheng to send him off on his final journey. Perhaps this way, he could live forever in his heart. Even without this, Lin Sheng would remember him forever. After learning the reason for the sect leader's madness, he never made any excessive moves again. But the sect leader still frequently lost his consciousness, and each bout of madness would result in partial memory loss. Of course, he would also remember the past betrayals. Although he knew it was all for his sake, he would still be very sad. Li Shun watched from the side, feeling extremely distressed, only able to make seemingly helpful gestures. Afterward, they left the demonic sect. They went to many places they had never been before, saw many sights they had never seen before, but ultimately, they couldn't fight against fate. Li Shun, Li Dui, you brat, why haven't you woken up yet? Wake up quickly. Director, don't be agitated. Li Shun is strong. He will surely pull through. One moment he was in raging flames, dealing with his mad demonic sect spouse. The next moment he woke up in a modern hospital bed. It turned out he was originally a person who had traveled from modern times, and his condition for returning to the present was to kill his loved one with his own hands. Lin Shin lay on the hospital bed, recalling the moments with his love in another world. Xiao Qing decided to step down as the demonic sect leader to spend his final days well. He wanted to travel and spend time alone with his love, but the happy times were too brief. They hadn't had enough time together. Then fate intervened. That day, when Lin Shan just returned home, he found Qinger lying on the bed in agony. This bout of madness lasted for 2 whole days. Lin Shin was tortured and covered in wounds. His Qinger hadn't returned to normal, and in the chaos, the oil lamp was knocked over. Raging flames immediately spread throughout the wooden cabin, and Lin Shen's memory only stopped at the moment he was choking Chinger's neck. Did he really kill Chinga? Overwhelming reluctance filled his heart. He could no longer bear the pain of separation. He buried his head and wept bitterly. At this time, Lang Xiaoqing lay unconscious on a bed in the Jiuyou sect territory. He wasn't strangled to death by Li Shan or perished in the fire. Instead, at the critical moment, he was saved by a passing divine doctor of the demonic sect, barely escaping death. The sect leader's subordinates whispered among themselves, saying that Li Shan had betrayed the sect leader again. At this moment, Lang Xiaoqing woke up. It's not his fault. The sect leader was actually making excuses for this heartless man, but he didn't know that the scoundrel had disappeared. Not long ago, he was still calling Li Shan intimately, but now he spoke his full name. Had his memory fully returned? Even the events that happened during his memory loss, he remembered clearly. Was this true recovery, or something else? The divine doctor quickly came forward to check his pulse. He discovered that the sect leader's meridians, previously chaotic from practicing evil arts, were now smooth and strong. This meant either the sect leader had lost all his powers, but that wasn't the case, or the sect leader had a near-death experience, and through rebirth, broke free from the evil arts. Lang Xiaoxian denied both explanations, believing it was related to Li Shan. Li Shan came from another world. This man was the demonic sect leader who went mad from practicing evil arts, but was reborn after being strangled by the time traveler Li Shan. To end this endless long-distance relationship, he decided to travel to modern times to pursue love bravely. How did Li Shan come to this world, and how did he return? The only one who knew the inside story was Wei Jingyi, the crazy martial arts alliance leader, because he was also a time traveler. Wei Jingyi told everyone, because he completed the task of killing Lang Xiaoqing, Lin Shan had now returned to his own world. Hearing this, the divine doctor suspected he had misunderstood the evil arts before. Perhaps the evil arts weren't meant to drive practitioners mad to death, but to help them achieve enlightenment. It turned out this practice wasn't called the Nine Abyss evil art at all, but rather his wife had come to another world for him. He couldn't imagine what Chinger had been through. Seeing this couple so affectionate, they quickly walked away tactfully. The young couple, not having seen each other for so long, suddenly became shy. The atmosphere in the hospital room gradually became subtle. Lang Xiaoqing still couldn't believe that he had actually crossed over. After he woke up, although he missed Li Shang deeply in his heart, he still decided to stay as the leader of the demon sect. Chong Langley saw his adoptive father's lovesickness, helping him remember how happy the days were when Xinjie and Li Shan were together. So he thought his adoptive father should do what he wanted to do. This made Lang Xiaoqing make up his mind. Abandoning everything in this world, he ascended the immortal platform to bravely pursue love. That's how he came to Li Shan's world. The sect leader version of Chinger always called him by his full name. Only Chinger without his memories would affectionately call him 14. Could it be that Chinger hadn't recovered his memories and wasn't strangled to death by him back then? Although Lang Xiaoqing now had complete memories and a clear mind, thinking about how cruel he had been to 14 before, he decided to keep it hidden for now. He immediately acted weak, tearfully saying he was saved by a divine doctor, and now only had memories up to age 20.